Danny Phantom, probably one of the most darkest superhero shows on Nickelodeon to date. But why? Probably because we were 10 years old when it came out and we thought it was awesome. The whole Vlad Masters arc, Danny's complicated identity journey, all wrapped up in a little Ghostbusters-esque story. Premiering in 2004, none of us knew what we were in for. And I want to structure this retrospective a little bit differently than I normally do. I kind of want to add to the tone by going through the first season as if it were like a really important chapter book or movie. Because let's face it, that's how we saw Danny Phantom. Now we've got 20 episodes in this first saga or arc. This whole narrative that is just waiting to be told. And I want to change up how I tell it. So sit back and get comfortable because we're about to be going over Danny Phantom, the origins of a ghost. So Act 1 introduces us to the world of Danny Phantom, where Danny Phantom navigates the tangled web of high school by day and Ghost Fighter by night. Kind of like a Ghostbusters meets Superman type show. The season opens in the middle of Danny already having his fateful accident with the ghost portal a month prior, gaining his extraordinary powers. These early episodes establish the premise and tone. They blend light-hearted comedy and supernatural adventures. We meet Danny's supportive yet eccentric ghost-hunting parents, Jack and Maddie, his compassionate goth best friend Sam Manson, who is like this ultra-recyclo-vegetarian who focuses on activism all the time, and his tech-savvy friend Tucker Foley, which at the time was pretty interesting to be into technology. Through them, the show's heart emerges with friendship and family being the anchor as Danny learns how to use his abilities like invisibility, intangibility, and flight. The creator Butch Hartman envisioned Danny Phantom as like a Johnny Quest meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Ghostbusters, which is kind of similar to what I said. And in these setup episodes, we see that DNA, like teen melodrama and humor interwoven into this comic book style ghost battle. Notably, the art style sets off a slightly more realistic five-finger look compared to Hartman's earlier Fairly Odd Parents, using a darker hue and comic book inspired title cards, and it's gorgeous. I love looking at this show. I feel like a real nerd. The result of all of this is a Nickelodeon show that was unafraid to carry serialized character growth alongside its fun Monster of the Week plots, exactly how the first season is. By the end of Act 1, Danny's foundational journey is laid out. He's gone from a clumsy newbie hero to somebody beginning to understand the weight of his doubled life, all while planting the seeds of a larger rivalry between this mysterious arch enemy. Each episode in this act feels like a chapter in the coming-of-age story, setting up the emotional stakes and themes that will evolve throughout the season. Episode 1, we have Mystery Meat. So the series' very first episode drops us right into Danny's life as a full-fledged half-ghost boy. It's been 1 month since the accident that infused Danny's DNA with ectoplasm, and he's still figuring out his strange new powers. I remember as a kid, I was so confused. I was like, wait, he has the powers? Is this the first episode? Did I miss something? Because continuity really matters to a kid, trust me. When Sam's eco-conscious campaign swabs the school's lunch menu to all vegetarian, it angers the spirit of a former lunch lady, a ghost made of centennial meatloaf, who literally crawls out of the fridge in this madcap opening episode. Danny faces the lunch lady ghost in a food-flinging battle across Casper High, their high school. The fight is equally spooky and silly. I mean, like, meat monsters and hairnets, anyone? Like, that's just ridiculous. It perfectly introduces us to the show's quirky humor, as well as Danny's identity issues. Importantly, it establishes that only Tucker and Sam know Danny's secret, which is kind of the moral compass of the season. We see them become his confidants and quote-unquote tech support from day one, cheering him on as he nervously exclaims his catchphrase for the first time, "Going Ghost." The climax in the cafeteria freezer forces Danny to cleverly use his budding powers to turn the vengeful ghost's own element against her, freezing the meaty menace to submission. Beyond the ghostly gag of a villain, Mystery Meat seeks the emotional foundation. Danny is the every kid, under the angst of self-consciousness and fitting in, anxious about his newfound responsibilities. When he nearly loses control of his powers in the front of his classmates, we feel fear for him. We don't want him to be outed as a freak. And yet we learn he's not alone. Sam and Tucker's unwavering support reassures him, kind of like this metaphor for real life when you're going through puberty and you take on a new identity and you need people to accept you. Like, that's kind of what Danny goes through. A moral thread glimmers even amid the food fight chaos. Be true to yourself and loyal to your friends, which is a great starting episode. Sam's principal stance on the lunch menu, though it backfires spectacularly, is portrayed with respect, which I appreciate. Danny stands by her, ghost goo and all, and the animation and music work in tandem to heighten the fun. Like, Guy Moon's scores bounces between the eerie theremin whistles whenever the ghost lunch lady appears, and the upbeat hero motifs as Danny gains confidence. It's very comical in a way that Fairly Odd Parents could be, and a little overdone, but not in a bad way. Notably, this episode kicks off with the rap rock theme song that rapidly explains Danny's origin. Thank God, because we didn't have it in the pilot. An unusually catchy intro that even critical voices have praised as one of the rare effective uses of rap in a cartoon theme. By the end of episode 1, the audience is in on the secret and hooked by the show's unique flavor. It's lighthearted yet meaningful and leaves us eager to follow a relatable kid on his strange journey. And you know how kids are, like, they like that creepy, scary stuff, like Five Nights at Freddy's, and that's kind of what it was for us at the time. Like, we liked the episode ideas of haunting paranormal setups, you know? The second chapter is parental bonding. So Danny's juggling his typical teen woes and paranormal chaos, encapsulating the series' Buffy-like blend of high school drama and supernatural peril. So Danny has a crush on Paulina. It's the school's reigning queen bee, and in a moment of puppy love desperation, he gives her an antique amulet, hoping to impress her. Unfortunately, the trinket belonged to somebody named Dora, a vengeful ghost princess, and when Paulina gets angry, the amulet transforms her into a dragon. As if that weren't enough, Danny's still unpredictable powers cause a ruckus in class, prompting a dreaded parent-teacher conference in the middle of it all. To avoid getting grounded and utterly embarrassed, Danny tries his brand new ghost ability, overshadowing. And I like that each episode kind of highlights a different part of Danny's life. Like, the first episode is family and friends. The second one is specifically one of his powers. He possesses his dad, Jack, and hilariously ad-libs his way through a meeting in Jack's body, which is a classic comedic sequence. We see Danny, as Jack, spout ghost puns and an exaggerated praise for his own alter ego, leaving Mr. Lancer baffled. But the real test comes at the school dance that night, when the dragon Paulina crashes into the party in full flame-breathing fury. Danny springs into action to protect his classmates, and the very girl he's been trying to woo. The character moments shine amidst the fun in this one. Danny's crush on Paulina is portrayed with sweet earnestness. He even practices asking her out in the mirror. It's sweet, yet it's Sam who subtly grounds him throughout it all. She's skeptical of Paulina's shallow nature and quietly hurt watching Danny chase someone unlike herself. Though Sam's feelings aren't overtly stated yet, her eye rolls and pointed quips at Paulina definitely hint at jealousy, and the audience can sense it, even if Danny can't. The episode adds a layer to Danny's relationship with his parents too. Like, we get to know them a little bit by him overshadowing Jack and experiencing a hint of fatherly perspective, with a little bit of guilt for, you know, deceiving his dad. Maddie's concern and Jack's oblivious pride during the conference show that, eccentricities aside, they genuinely care about Danny's welfare. Like, moral and emotional takeaway, honesty is about being your true self instead of trying to impress others, and they do it in this ghost-like fashion. Ultimately, Danny has to defeat the dragon with a creatively improvised weapon involving a frozen meat log, call back to the episode 1, which is less than 30 seconds ago, whatever, and then humbly explain to Paulina that he can't date her because homework. And I don't know why that's the excuse. It's an awkward face-saving lie that spares Paulina's feelings, and it keeps her secret safe and reinforces what we knew all along, that Danny has relationships built on lies that maybe his ghostly tendencies can't hold. The tone remains breezy and comedic. Even if the dragon battle has slapstick moments, the key theme is seated. Danny's double life will often force him to make tough choices, and he won't always get what he thinks he wants. The episode wraps with this punchline and his sister Jazz grounding Jack for being immature at the conference, which is kind of funny because she doesn't realize it was Danny all along. And I love Danny and Jazz's relationship. Jazz is obviously his sister, and they have this really love-hate dynamic that really flourishes throughout the series. Chapter 3, we got one of a kind. So Danny is thrust into the crosshairs of Skulker, a high-tech ghost hunter who prides himself on collecting rare creatures. A really interesting enemy to have, to say the least, and somebody who comes back consistently throughout the series. Danny is this ghost-human hybrid and the ultimate bounty for him to collect. The story opens with Danny exhausted after a late-night ghost fight with the box ghost, which is one of the funniest ghosts ever, and he immediately highlights the challenge of balancing hero work with actual homework. At school, his fatigue catches up to him when he bombs a biology test, earning a D, and and Sam and Tucker rally to help Danny fix his grade. Sam suggests an extra credit project, like on this elusive purple-black gorilla, and Tucker, the gadget guy, optimistically programs Danny's entire schedule into the PDA to help manage Danny's time, which is really sweet of them as friends. They don't need to be that involved. Unbeknownst to them, though, Skulker is already on Danny's tail. In a clever twist of technology, Skulker snatches Tucker's PDA, fuses it into his armor, and uses it against the kids, thinking that it'll boost his hunting prowess. And it does, but the catch is Skulker's equipment literally runs on Danny's calendar, causing him to comedically pause ghostly attacks because it's time for math class, which is so funny. He pops on his heads-up display, and the episode escalates into a three-way scramble as Danny tries to survive Skulker's traps, retrieve the PDA, and also not fail school. It's subtle yet present character development in this episode, with his struggle with time management and academic pressure to get around the fantastical ghost plot in a relatable teenage reality. We see Danny's guilt and determination when he vows to do better, which is a humble moment of growth for a carefree teen. Tucker, while meaning well with the PDA scheduling, learns that some problems, like ghost hunters, for example, aren't solvable with an app. There's such a cute moment where Tucker is apologizing for inadvertently upgrading the enemy, and Sam continues to be Danny's conscience, nudging him to take responsibility, but also fiercely having his back when danger strikes. When Skulker attacks during the school hours, Sam and Tucker don't even hesitate to jump in the fray. Tucker even uses Meatloaf from the episode 1's fiasco in the cafeteria, which is crazy that this is a continuity moment for all of us. And the moral undercurrent here touches on responsibility and recognizing one's own uniqueness, kind of like it does in almost every episode. It alludes to Danny not just being a unique species for Skulker to take, but also being the value of uniqueness rather than seeing it as a curse. By outsmarting Skulker, he can actually gain his pride back and feel confidence enough to complete his test. Danny proves himself that he can handle his double life, and he can both be student and hero with enough help from his friends. And Skulker is like one of the most memorable villains. He's formidable in appearance. He's muscled, armor-clad predator with a menacing voice, and it's beautifully drawn. I love the animation in this episode. He's voiced by Matthew St. Patrick, yet the animators imbue comedic timing into his character really well, especially once Tucker's calendar starts dinging at inopportune moments. Like, I wonder how they connected the voice acting to the freewheeling nature of Skulker. The fight sequences is like this jungle-like nature preserve, which is already new for the series, so off the bat, and very dynamic. Like, the vibrant greens and mechanical gadgets clash in a visually engaging way, and it's underscored by this urgent, percussion-heavy score. And fun behind-the-scenes fact, Skulker's concept is actually a ghostly twist on Boba Fett or Predator, tapping into the trope of the ultimate hunter, which resonates with fans of all ages. By the end of this episode, Danny earns a literal A for his project and a figurative A+ in heroism, safely caging Skulker into a mini ghost piloting mecha suit. He's already taken another step in self-confidence, and as a chapter in this season 1 story, one of a kind, showcases Danny's burgeoning ability to balance his normal life with his ghost life. And then we got episode 4, Attack of the Killer Garage Sale. Fame and friendship collide in this episode, and it pushes Danny to confront the perils of popularity specifically. When we open on Danny craving a new school outfit to impress his classmates, it's clear he's tired of being the invisible freshman, no pun intended. With a nudge from the ever fashion-savvy Sam, Danny organizes a garage sale to raise money, cleaning out his parents' lab junk. Unbeknownst to them, many of the items are infused with stray ectoplasm, so this is the setup for Nikolai Technis's debut. The self-proclaimed master of all things electronic, who we get to see and is definitely a fan favorite throughout the series. I also know he's a playable character in the Nicktoons Unite Globs of Doom video game for the Wii, which is kind of a cool throwback for me. He literally gets sold for $5 as a bunch of spare parts, and once the scattered tech finds its way into various buyers' hands, Technis uses the opportunity to reassemble and unleash electric mayhem across Amity Park. Meanwhile, Danny's sudden ascent into the popular crowd, new threads with a new seat with the cool kids, resembling kind of like a Fairly Odd Parents type scenario, strains his bond with Sam and Tucker. He starts skipping their usual lunch table, ignoring their calls, and basking in shallow teenage clout. Does it sound familiar? Because it feels like a Fairly Odd Parents episode. It all comes to a head at the big party hosted by the popular Dash Baxter, the cool kid and football player, who is really kind of stupid, and I love this guy's character. He's just so funny. And Technis manifests the very gadgets that the teens are using at the party to have fun, like turning up the speakers, phones, and gaming consoles into an army of havoc. Such a cool cool, relevant concept, especially in our day and age. Like, technology really does play that much of a role that it's more of a weapon than it is a help to us, especially when it comes to each other. And I like that Danny Phantom cares about keeping up with the times in that sense. The episode's a goldmine for Danny's personal growth, for sure, and at first we see an intoxicating smile on Danny's face, finally like focused on the in crowd, and we're worried about him for a little bit, but that glow fades when he realizes that popularity comes at the cost of authenticity. Sam's hurt and betrayal is definitely like realistic. She confronts Danny for ditching them, and we actually kind of respect her for being able to communicate her concerns like that, and definitely feel for her disappointment when Danny switches to the other side. Tucker normally is the jokester and clearly high-strung on this situation because the trio's dynamics is finally wobbling for the first time. It's definitely a lesson on loyalty wrapped in ghostly chaos. Only when Technus threatens everybody, cool kids included, does Danny see the bigger picture, that it doesn't really matter who you are. The superficial social hierarchy means nothing if you can't even trust or stand by real friends. And in the climax, Sam and Tucker step up despite feeling betrayed and help Danny devise a plan to short-circuit Technus. Notably, Sam uses one of Danny's parents' inventions, the Fenton thermos, to capture Technus once Danny weakens him, showing that even without powers, Danny's friends are indispensable. And when the dust settles, Danny sincerely apologizes to Sam and Tucker, acknowledging that no amount of popularity is worth losing them. The emotional resolution is the trio reconciling over a late-night junk food feast, which is super relatable for people my age. I feel like we definitely used to go out and just feast on junk food. Danny, back in his normal clothes, reinforces the series' heartbeat is that true friends accept you for who you are. In the tone and thematic depth, Attack of the Killer Garage Sale balances its morals with a lot of fun. Like, Technus is an over-the-top villain with a campy 8-bit soundtrack to match his electronic theme, injecting horror and humor even as he bellows about world domination. The animation during Technus' rampage is also a really cool treat. Like, he grows from this tiny flicker on a computer chip into a towering, sparkling amalgamation of TVs and speakers. Like, it is so cool. It's like kind of retro. The episode's title itself also plays homage to a B-movie horror, like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, signaling the show's need to be kind of like a parody. Butch Hartman's team layered in some behind-the-scenes Easter eggs too, like many of the gadgets Danny sells are nods to previous Nickelodeon shows, and even the old Fenton inventions mentioned in passing. One can even imagine Hartman's commentary pointing out the portable home portal device in the yard sale that never worked, hence being sold, which is kind of a cool little world-building detail. The music crescendos into a rock guitar riff as Danny, in his new slick outfit, takes flight to chase Technus in the skies above the party, and it's epic and slightly tongue-in-cheek, and Danny's fancy clothes get ruined in a fight, symbolically stripping him of his superficial makeover. In the end, the status quo resets. Danny's back as a normal kid in a ratty t-shirt at school, and he's gained something more important than popularity, humility, and a stronger friendship. The episode stands out in Act 1 as the moment that Danny tangibly learns that Sam and Tucker are just as important as his ghost powers, and it's very heartfelt. Next we have episode 5, Splitting Images. In this slightly darker turn for Act 1, Splitting Images explores bullying and the temptation of revenge, giving us one of the first hints at Danny's powers being not inherently good or evil, and it's his choices that make him who he is. It all starts with this mishap with the ever unlucky box ghost, resulting in Danny's locker being destroyed. It lands him a new locker, locker number 724. The entire school goes ominously quiet at the moment he gets this locker, and we learn why, because it used to belong to Sidney Poindexter, which is the most nerdiest name I think any human could come up with. It's this student from the 1950s who was mercilessly bullied and whose unhappy spirit now haunts the locker that Danny is assigned. Initially, Danny is oblivious to the backstory and fed up with his own bullies, kind of mirroring what this guy goes through. Danny decides to use his ghost abilities for a little ghostly get back, pranking Dash by pantsing him in public and other small humiliations, and it's played for laugh at first. Even Tucker eggs him on, but Sam looks weary, like she questions if Danny is crossing a line and fighting fire with fire. The moral quandary abruptly escalates when Poindexter's ghost catches Danny in the act of tormenting a bully, misreading Danny as just another cruel popular kid. Poindexter drags him into the mirror world version of Casper High, and it's this creepy, distorted reflection of reality where Danny finds himself literally walking in Poindexter's shoes, complete with Poindexter's old taped glasses, bow tie, and everything materializing on Danny. Meanwhile, Poindexter, now free, steals Danny's identity in the real world. He's trapped in this sepia ghost dimension where he's bullied and taunted by mirror versions of Dash and others experiencing exactly what Sydney did years ago. This episode is rich in emotional and moral content. Like, Danny's arc here is a classic tale of learning empathy the hard way. The initial thrill he he got from turning the tables on Dash turns to horror as he endures the same isolation and abuse that Sydney faced. In one poignant scene, Mirror Dash shoves Danny into a locker, mirroring how that happened in his life, and Danny's genuine tears of frustration finally help him understand the depth of Sydney's pain. On the outside, Tucker and Sam quickly notice that Danny's acting pretty bizarre and Poindexter is inhabiting his body. It's very vindictive, and targeting Dash and the other students in a really rude way is just exactly what Danny was doing before. It raises the stakes, and not only must Danny escape, he has to stop Sydney before the ghost does something Danny can't undo. Jazz, his sister, is ever the intuitive person. She senses that something's off with her brother's behavior, and it starts this long arc of Jazz actually caring about what Danny's up to in a more motherly way, but it's hard because they always have that wall between them with the ghost abilities. Like, she doesn't know about it, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense to her the way he's acting. I do like the 50s slang. It seems really funny. I feel like Butch Hartman was calling from his own experiences at that age. The resolution comes in when Danny, using his earnest remorse, convinces Sydney that they are kindred spirits, not enemies, in a climactic confrontation in front of the funhouse mirror. Danny swaps back and faces Poindexter ghost to ghost and doesn't fight with fists or blasts, but apologizes and acknowledges Sydney's trauma. Moved by this and realizing Danny himself has been bullied, Sydney relents and Danny regains his identity. Poindexter returns to the mirror realm, now understanding that Danny is a friend, not a foe. And it feels like a commentary on how one could have like racial differences. Like, it's not about the color of our skin, but like how we relate to people. Empathy is kind of the root to all connections with other people, despite the way you look, despite anything else. And I really like that's kind of a nod to that. It reminds me of Ben 10 in the way too, because Ben 10 is about him turning into different aliens, but the moral behind that is that each of those aliens are their own race, their own species, and his identity clashing with theirs, while Danny is understanding this new culture of ghosts and their inhabitants. Like, it's really interesting how it's done so deeply. From an analysis perspective, Splitting Images specifically stands out for its atmosphere and theme. The animation takes the creative turn, making everything a lot more darker and like different colored. Like, I love how cartoons will do that, especially specifically the Butch Hartman show. Like, I feel like that's something he's really good at. This is a cool tonal shift from the bright slapstick fights from the earlier episodes, demonstrating how far this show can go. It's likely no coincidence that for one of the first episodes, writer Steve Marmol and the director Butch Hartman collaborated with a clear-cut villain to punch. Instead, the conflict is deeply internal and moral, and the music complements this with a more haunting, melancholy score when Danny realizes the consequences of his vengeful behavior. There's a moment many fans can recall when Danny, stuck behind the glass mirror, pounds on it in despair as Danny walks away with his life. The swell of music underscores Danny's panic and angst in a way that like just kicks you in the heart. I know Butch Hartman noted that Danny is not the perfect hero, he's just a kid who makes mistakes, and the episode embodies that philosophy. It also subtly foreshadows the series' later exploration of a possible evil Danny in the Ultimate Enemy episode, which is definitely one of my favorite in this whole series. Here we get a small taste of what Danny could be like if he misused his powers consistently. In the end, lessons are learned. Danny, with humility, stops using his abilities for petty revenge and even stands up for more compassionate choices, especially with the bullied kids after this. The final scene is touching. Danny leaves a single red rose at Poindexter's old locker as a peace offering, implying that Sydney's spirit can now rest a bit easier knowing he's not forgotten or mocked. Aww. As a chapter, Splitting Images delivers a resonant messages that power should be guided with empathy and integrity. A nostalgic favorite for many who remember this deeper emotional episode. Episode 6, we have What You Want. So by this episode, Danny's confidence in ghost fighting is growing, but so are his friends' feelings of inadequacy. What You Want brilliantly uses a wish-granting ghost to explore envy and the old adage, be careful what you wish for, in a way that Fairly Odd Parents couldn't necessarily do because of its light and comedic tone. The episode kicks off with a whimsical accident. A little girl's balloon snags a mysterious old lamp and smashes it open. She unleashes Desiree, this genie-like ghost who grants every wish she hears. But it always comes with like chaotic twists, as you can imagine. Desiree's elegant and deceptive, gleefully turning casual remarks into literal hauntings. Like a kid wishing for endless ice cream leads to a messy ice cream monster attack. Danny confronts her and in the process discovers a new power of his own, firing a focused ecto ray from his hand, and a spectral energy blast that he wasn't really able to do before this episode. This victory is short-lived because it feeds into a new tension. Tucker is starting to grow envious of Danny's ever-expanding ghost abilities, and he hasn't had like an episode on his own quite yet, so this is kind of interesting to see a like darker side to him. Feeling left out as the only powerless member of the trio, Tucker voices a careless wish that he had ghost powers too. Desiree, who is lurking invisibly, makes it come true. And at first, Tucker is ecstatic. He can fly, go intangible, and do all the cool ghost stuff that Danny can. Danny, however, is immediately worried. Tucker's powers are wish granted and come with an unstable curse. Sure enough, Tucker's initial fun, like raiding the girls' locker room invisibly, which shows that Tucker is kind of a doofus rather than endorsing the idea. It like all turns dangerous and his powers start growing exponentially out of control. Desiree's cruel twist is revealed. Tucker's envy fuels for an insatiable transformation. If left unchecked, he'll become a Hulk, mindlessly attacking people as this ghost creature, the very thing he thought he wanted to be. It sets up for this emotionally charged conflict between Danny and his best friend. The character moments hit a lot harder with Tucker, normally jovial, snaps at Danny, accusing him of not understanding what it's like to be ordinary or overshadowed. Sam finds herself in the middle, worried about both of her friends, scolding Tucker for his wish, but also reminding Danny that they need to handle Tucker's feelings with care, not just treat him as a ghost problem. The resolution comes in a showdown at the city's observatory, which is a cool change of location. An overpowered Tucker, half transformed, half green, rampages, drawing energy from the electrical appliances around him. Really cool nod to his character and his love of technology. Danny has to stop Tucker's half ghost and reach the real Tucker buried underneath the envy and ectoplasmic surge. It's significant that Danny doesn't want to hurt his friends. Like, he spends more effort trying to talk Tucker down instead of blasting him. And in the end, Danny wields the Fenton Ghost Catcher, a new device briefly introduced earlier that literally splits Tucker from his ghost powers. A clever foreshadowing of how human and ghost halves can be separated, something we didn't learn up until now. He captures Desiree by outsmarting her, and he wishes that she would imprison herself, a loophole that forces her into her own lamp. With Desiree gone, Tucker's unwanted powers vanish too. And the aftermath is like touching. Like, Tucker admits he was wrong and that he didn't appreciate the burden Danny bears along with the glory. Danny in turn apologizes for inadvertently flaunting something Tucker never realized he could have. The two reaffirm each other that they're a team, each with their own unique contributions. And after all, where would Danny be without Tucker's tech and know-how or Sam's strategic thinking? From an analytical standpoint, what you want is stand out as an episode for blending mythology and modern life. Like, Desiree's character draws from the classic genie folklore and is transposed into this like contemporary setting with a swirly green ethereal form. And she's like seductive and echoing, with a voice by Perry Giltman, making her alluring and eerie. The animation really shines too, because Tucker's progressive ghost transformation with the green eyes and the wisp of smoke adds a dramatically monstrous reflecting tension. Music cues from the Middle Eastern influences wherever Desiree is on screen is definitely something that makes us remember this is old world magic, contrasting the modern backdrop of Amity Park. It also debuts the Fenton Ghost Catcher, you know, that thing that separates the ghost from its normal form. Fans in later episodes note that this device is a crucial foreshadowing to something that happens in later of season 2. Hartman's behind the scenes commentary often points out that season 1 planted these seeds, and what you want is a prime example of seemingly episodic content feeding into a bigger lore. Thematically, the episode's moral is crystal clear, yet delivered with empathy. Envy can make you lose sight of who you are, and sometimes what we wish for isn't what we need. In a nostalgic sense, many viewers remember Tucker's brief turn into a ghostly figure, dubbed Ghost Tucker, as a powerful image of a friendship at stake. A chapter where the trio's bond is tested and internal emotions, rather than an external villain, concludes. This is where Act 1 is getting ready to come to a close, as Tucker gains perspective on Danny's life, and Sam, well, she gets 2 less bull-headed boys for friends. Little did they know, the biggest test of their unity appears in the next episode, episode 7, Bitter Reunions. I would consider this the Act 1 finale when we're jumping from the ordinary world, because the dramatic stakes raise, and it lays the cornerstone for Danny Phantom's overall arching conflict. This episode takes Danny and us out of the familiar Casper High and into a personal ghost hunting road trip. When Jack Fenton hauls the family together for a college reunion in rural Wisconsin, Danny is not thrilled. And then he meets Vlad, Vlad Masters, Jack's old buddy hosting the event. Vlad is wealthy, sophisticated, and he's got like a really smooth voice. I really like this guy. He's surprisingly really nice to Danny, showering him with attention and talking science, treating him like he's an adult, like his parents don't. Yet there's something off about his charming bachelor behavior in this mansion, and there's a lot of extensive ghost artifacts. We soon learn the chilling truth that Vlad Masters is none other than Vlad Plasmius, a half ghost just like Danny and one of the only ones to exist. 20 years Danny's senior, and fueled by this simmering hatred instead of Danny's, like, optimism. In college, apparently Jack's prototype ghost portal misfired, blasts Vlad into an ecto-energy, landing him into the hospital with ecto-acne for years, which is very similar in the sense that Jack is also the reason Danny is half, and he doesn't know between either of them how bad he messed up, which is kind of cool. I like that it's like secret, and only the people who suffered from it can reconnect on it. Like, it's kind of creepy. Not only does he blame Jack for ruining his life and stealing Maddie's love, but he's spent decades honing his ghost responsibilities in isolation, unlike Danny. Now Vlad has a twisted goal. He wants Danny as a surrogate son and Jack out of the picture for good, which is really interesting that his expectations are that Danny would go through with this. Like, I think that's really far-fetched, but if you're in isolation this long, it's definitely a twisted mentality to have. The revelation of Vlad as Danny's archenemy is one of the season 1 most pivotal moments, especially since it's mostly monster of the week. We see people and then they leave, even though they come back later, but Vlad is definitely a recurring character. He embodies ambition warped by bitterness. He's brilliant, polished on the surface, but beneath he has like loneliness and a little bit of an obsession. Danny dubs him as a Fruit Loop, which I don't know why you could call somebody that, and Vlad's crazier side kinda emerges in a bunch of different ways. Its emotional core has a multi-layered conflict. Vlad tries to manipulate Danny by appealing to their shared ghosthood, essentially saying, join me and I could teach you things your father never could. It's almost like a perverse mirror of father-son talk, making it even creepier by Vlad's open admission that he's been spying on Danny all these years. He knows Danny's secret after witnessing Danny fight in Wisconsin, and intends to take Maddie. Danny, to his credit, is repulsed by Vlad's offers despite the temptations of mentorship. He doesn't seem like he entertains it for long at all. He overwhelms Danny in their first duel, hurling ecto-energy with expert precision and nearly knocking Danny out cold. At one point, Vlad's about to deliver a finishing blast and snarls that Danny should join him because they're both halves of the same coin. Danny retorts that the only thing they have in common is they're both alone, until he says not anymore and Sam and Tucker join in, showing the one difference between them and how big of a difference that even makes, as they back Danny up in this fist-pumping moment of friendship, triumphing Vlad's isolation. Oof, this is definitely where the character development peaks. Danny comes away from his confrontation more mature and eyes open to the potential future he has to avoid. Vlad personifies what Danny could become if he let power and anger consume him, if he alienated those he loved. The protective instincts in Danny surge. After Vlad injures Jack with this ecto blast, Danny fights with ferocity, and not just to stop Vlad, but to defend his father. This is also a key episode for the Fenton family dynamic. Like, Jazz, though mostly on the sidelines, observes how Vlad interacts with her mom and brother. And if you recall episode 5, Jazz now knows Danny's secret, and thus is extra suspicious of Vlad's too smooth interest in Danny. Her subtle vigilance and quietly facilitating Sam and Tucker's rescue mission shows that Jazz is already guarding Danny in her own way without him knowing what's going on. Meanwhile, Maddie's fond reminiscence of college friend Vlad quickly turn into disillusionment as she sees his true colors. Her mama bear mode activates when Vlad's creepiness toward Danny surfaces, and good for her. She's a good mom, and I appreciate that, because it's hard to make a good mom in a Butch Hartman show. Jack is oblivious to the whole showdown for much of its duration, but still proves his heart. Like, when Vlad unleashes a horde of ecto doppelgangers on the family, Jack shields Maddie and Jazz and is utterly unafraid to leap between his family and danger. In the end, Vlad is defeated, humiliatingly, by a Badgers mascot statue that Jack topples onto him in a mix of slapstick and fate. He retreats with a parting warning that he has 20 years of experience on Danny and will be back. The music cues lean into this, giving Vlad a menacing motif with deep brass and pipe organ undertones, a nod to the classic Dracula perhaps, and obsession with ecto-blood, as it were. Butch Hartman himself has mentioned that introducing Vlad was the true plot of Danny Phantom, kicking in. The title Bitter Reunion speaks to multiple layers. Vlad and Jack's bitter reunion as estranged friends, Vlad's attempted at a reunion of half-ghosts with Danny that turns bitter, and even the thematically bitterness that Vlad had for many years. Fans often point out that this episode is when they realize Danny Phantom wasn't just an episodic kid kids show. It was a serialized saga with a compelling villain. Vlad's presence looms over the rest of the series after this. The nostalgic weight of rewatching Bitter Reunions is so fun because this mentor-turned-nemesis relationship has always been something interesting in kid shows for me. I'm not sure if you saw my Shaolin Showdown video, but Chase Young and Omi is the biggest mentor betrayal of all time, and I definitely recommend you check that out. As this Act 1 closes, we see Danny face his polar opposite and barely survive, which is really exciting, and I'm so excited for what's next. Now we got Act 2, which is the conflict and exploration. I would say this is more so episodes 8 to 14, that classic Act 2 fun and games. If Act 1 built the foundation, Act 2 of Season 1 definitely runs wild through the halls and Ghost Zone corridors of conflict and exploration. In these episodes, Danny Fenton broadens its scope and deepens its storytelling, with Danny's secret world colliding spectacularly with everyday life. We see the Ghost Zone itself for the first time. We watch Danny's personal relationships strain and strengthen, and even encounter new allies and adversaries that challenge his black and white assumptions about ghosts. The tone of the series evolves here. It's like still funny and adventurous with this growing undercurrent of complexity, and the consequences start to carry over from one episode to the next, creating a sense of like cohesive saga, like kind of like a Dragon Ball Z saga would be. For instance, Danny even earns a ire of a vengeful ghost warden, and later faces fallout as the ghost returns with a larger scheme. His friendly classmate Valerie is tragically transformed into a ghost hunter because of collateral damage from Danny's heroics. It's like all about misunderstanding, trust, and moral ambiguity. It's definitely the conflict part of it all. It also explores side characters in richer details, like Jazz's perspective, Valerie's fall and rise, and Sam and Danny's unspoken feelings, even with Mr. Lancer's humility. This not only fleshes out the supporting cast, but reflects on Danny's own journey through their experiences. The animation becomes a lot more adventurous, like a haunted house contest, a hard rock ghost concert, and even a dip into the video game world. And the 50s biker ghost realm, they're all like super unique visual flavors that keep the storytelling fresh. Musically, we get a lot of standout moments like Ember's rock anthem and real texture to the show's soundscape. By the end of Act 2, Danny has been tested in new ways, but let's jump into it and see where it goes. So episode 8 is called Prisoners of Love. It's the episode that rips open the veil, literally, to the Ghost Zone, turning personal family errands into a supernatural jailbreak adventure. It starts with the rare and tender note that it's Jack and Maddie's wedding anniversary, an episode kind of circled around the parents. Jack's heartfelt gift to Maddie is a handcrafted ghost-themed present and accidentally locks it in the ghost portal. Danny is really worried his parents are going to separate if he doesn't actually bring him this gift and allow his dad to celebrate the anniversary. He feels responsible and also secretly anxious about this whole anniversary situation. The promise leads him to venture into the Ghost Zone on his own without meaning to, and it's just like a surreal floating patchwork of green void and random doorways, kind of like Monsters Inc. in the yin-yang world. Danny's initial awe quickly turns to alarm when he's arrested by a guy named Walker. It's the Ghost Zone's authoritarian prison warden. Walker embodies this letter of the law gone awry. He books Danny for a minor infraction that he could cook up, showing this more toxic trait to lawmakers. And despite Danny's protests, he sentences him to 1,000 years in ghost prison, just to make an example out of him. So locked up, Danny finds himself among familiar foes, ghosts he's personally caught and deposited back into the zone. So we all know where that thermostat is headed. The lunch lady ghost, the box ghost, and Technus are all incarcerated alongside him, and none are happy about it. It's definitely funny to watch all Danny's biggest enemies confront him, and not knowing where Sam or Tucker are is definitely adding to the concern. But here's where the episode takes a clever turn. Rather than these ghosts ganging up on Danny, he rallies them in a common cause, escape, and it's this classic enemy of an enemy is my friend scenario. In a series of humorous exchanges, Danny convinces them that whatever issues they had with him are nothing compared to the eternal imprisonment under Walker. The jailbreak sequence is a highlight too, like Danny leading this ragtag band of ghosts, each using their own unique abilities to overcome security. It's really interesting. The lunch lady floods the cafeteria, the box ghost provides, well, boxes to hide in, and Technus manipulates the security systems against Walker's forces. Danny's leadership skills are definitely good on display. Like, we see him acting diplomatically and strategically, a big step from his solo unsure hero of the early episodes in Act 1. There's also this emotional undercurrent, Danny's desperate determination to retrieve his parents' gift. It hints at how much he really values his family's unity. A poignant scene occurs when, during a lull in the escape, Danny confides to the lunch lady that he's doing this for his mom and dad. In her quirky, motherly way, she actually encourages him, a small moment where a ghost and Danny connect on a positive emotion, love for family, rather than conflict. This foreshadows Danny's evolving view that not all ghosts ghosts or irredeemably bad, but sometimes can cooperate or even empathize. It's a theme that will reoccur, but Prisoners of Love definitely plants that seed. The concept that in the ghost zone humans are ghosts is a fascinating twist revealed when Danny realizes that Walker's bullets pass through him harmlessly. The zone's physics are inverted, a brilliant bit of world building that explains why Walker needed to jail Danny with rules and cells rather than simply hurting him, which I think he would have eventually found that out in jail. Like 1,000 years gone by and you're telling me it doesn't work? I don't know. You could feel influences from prison escape films like Shawshank Redemption. There's a slide to The Green Mile, and I don't know, it gives it all like a Nicktoons spin. The score at time riffs on caper music with the sneaky pizzicato strings as Danny and company tiptoe past the guards, and then swelling heroic trumpets when they bust out of the Ghost Zone equivalent of a prison yard. Visually, the Ghost Zone is depicted as this like psychedelic green and purple place, and the animators must have flexed their imagination because this thing is something that can never be done on Fairly Odd Parents, not even on any of the other Nicktoons shows. It's incredible. By the time Danny snatches the anniversary gift, which was tucked safely in Walker's evidence locker, he escapes back to the human world and is gained something intangible too: confidence. Haha. And ghostly respect. The escaped ghosts actually do cover Danny's retreat momentarily, and they unite against the same pompous warden. Of course, as soon as Danny's gone, they scatter, free to cause trouble another day. But back home, Danny slips the gift into Jack's hands, and all that matters is that his family is together, grounding us back in the love and warmth that drive Danny and make him such a likable lead. Prisoners of Love serves as a reminder that Danny Phantom's heroism isn't about catching ghosts for glory, it's rooted in protecting people he cares for. It leaves a lasting mark on the season's continuity, like Walker is humiliated and furious, vowing revenge, and setting up a later confrontation on Danny's turf. But for now, Danny cherishes the quiet victory, and the parents are happily dancing in their anniversary goggles, completely unaware that their son just staged a miniature Ghost Zone breakout for them. The chapter is adventurous and heartfelt, and it encapsulates the show's ability to be imaginative and touching all at once. Then we have episode 9, My Brother's Keeper. Secrets, siblings, and soul-sucking specter. My Brother's Keeper is a turning point for Danny and Jazz's relationship, wrapped up in an eerie cautionary tale about emotional manipulation. When a new guidance counselor named Penelope Spectra, a therapist, an evil ghost therapist, which is super cool, she starts at Casper High, and everyone adores her enthusiasm, like she's young, fashionable, and always ready with positive affirmations. The students sink into inexplicable depression. Even the school's star athletes and the happiest kids become apathetic and insecure. Unseen to all, Spectra is a ghost in disguise, feeding on the misery of students to keep her young and beautiful. Appears to be like this perfect confidant, then subtly undermines students' self-esteem to exuberate their negative emotion. It's a dark concept for a Nick cartoon, and the show doesn't shy away from showing its effects on Danny. Under Spectra's influence, often accompanied by her shape-shifting ghost sidekick, Bertrand, who covertly harasses the students in various forms, Danny grows moody, snappish, and usually down on himself. He even begins to doubt his abilities as a ghost hero. Exactly the kind of self-doubt that Spectra savors. Meanwhile, Jazz has been noticing Danny's strange behavior for a while, and in previous episodes, we saw her concern. But here she actually takes action, deciding to investigate what's really going on with her brother. And Jazz is in a unique position, like since she's the overachiever who would normally be all over the new counselor for extra guidance, she finds herself repelled by Spectra's shady approach. As Danny's attitude worsens, he's late to class, snapping at Tucker and Sam, and even ditching ghost fights. Jazz initially suspects this typical teenage issue to be like hormones or something, but she confronts him with a flashlight, and Danny, knowing he can't tell her the truth, just pushes her away more, which is kind of sad. The episode climax comes when Jazz corners Danny in the school hallway during a particularly heated ghost attack by Bertrand, who's taken the form of a bully monster, and Jazz witnesses Danny transform into Danny Phantom right before her eyes. It's a monumental moment where she actually discovers the secret Danny's been keeping, but in a display of morality and love, she doesn't freak out. Instead, things click into place, Danny's mood swings and odd disappearances, and her concern amplifies. Together, with Jazz now in on the secret, they confront Spectra in her lair, the school psychologist's office, which morphs into a ghostly nightmare when Spectra reveals her true form, which is like a wrath-like creature, glowing eyes and contorted aged face, starkly different from a sunny human facade that she was putting on earlier. Spectra realizes that Jazz threatens her plan, so she tries to sap Jazz's confidence too, taunting her by saying she's a meddling know-it-all who's caused Danny nothing but stress. And for a moment, Jazz actually looks like she actually cares about what she's saying, and under decades tirades of being the perfect child and guilt riding on Danny's life, Jazz steels herself, bolstered by her love for Danny, and fires back that Spectra's the pathetic one. And I really respect her in this moment. We definitely like Jazz a lot more than we did in previous episodes, as being the naggy older sister. Like, now she's actually become a lot more of an ally. It enrages Spectra enough to lose control, and Danny seizes the moment to fight back with renewed vigor, inspired by Jazz's words. The siblings make a really good team. Like, Jazz even uses one of Jack's ghost gadgets, the Fenton peeler, sort of like this ghost taser, and then zapped Spectra mid-air, allowing Danny to capture the villain in the Fenton thermos, without necessarily revealing that she knows his secret. The threat is neutralized, and the school returns to normal, with students perking up almost immediately, and a bit of cartoon logic to restore the equilibrium. But the emotional fallout is where this episode truly shines. Like, Danny's nervous approach to Jazz later at home, unsure how to handle the fact that she might know his secret, is a tender submersion of expectations. Jazz doesn't confront him or blurt it out to their parents. Instead, she lets Danny speak first, and he awkwardly asks if she's okay. Jazz simply replies that she'll always be there for him when he's ready to talk. She keeps the secret, effectively saying through her actions that she respects his autonomy and timing. And it's surprisingly mature and heartwarming to end an episode on such an emotional bleakness, you know? My Brother's Keeper is a favorite for how it handles mental health themes and sibling bonds. Like, Spectra's character is a sly commentary on those who thrive on others' misery, an embodiment of toxic positivity on the surface with a predatory intent underneath. The show's writers deserve a lot of credit for introducing a villain that's not defeated by brute force alone, but the emotional resilience and exposure of truth. When Spectra's true form is revealed, withered and desperate, it's a visual metaphor for what feeding on negativity really yields. The tone of the episode is unnerving, with influence over it, and the subdued color palette to match their mood. Like, it's heartfelt, and I really like that. I like the music that comes out for Spectra scenes, too. It's like low and creepy with whispery vocals. And when Jazz and Danny team up, the score jumps up to uplifting Danny Phantom themes, and I really like that. The episode's legacy is fandom. It cements Jazz as an ally and a confidant for Danny much earlier than many other superhero narratives do with sibling characters. Fans often cite Jazz's decision to wait for Danny to open up as one of the most touching moments in the series. It's the ultimate show of support. Behind the scenes, it's known that Steve Marmol, who the story editor is, they intentionally made Jazz's perspective to avoid the tired tropes of clueless family members, and the episode delivers on that. And Spectra does return as a recurring villain with this awesome intro to her. Like, I feel like it's such a good way to show us who she is. As a chapter, this episode definitely adds a new dimension to Danny's story. He's no longer alone in his family. Jazz's silent support is strengthening him at the end, and watching Danny head out for another night of Ghost Patrol speaks volumes. Her expressions equally parts worry and pride, and the siblings have each other's backs, making all the difference going forward. Now we're halfway through the season, episode 10, Shades of Grey. So following the seismic shift of Jazz learning Danny's secret, episode 10 expands on Danny Phantom and his universe by introducing a sympathetic antagonist whose life is upended by the ghostly collateral damage. Shadows of Grey is aptly named. It delves into the moral gray areas that literally centers on Valerie Grey, a character who transitions from a popular kid to a bitter ghost hunter. The episode begins with a seemingly minor ghost incident, like a cute dog that's green, and it must be a ghost dog named Cujo, keeps appearing at Exion Labs, the tech company where Valerie's father works security. Danny, trying to capture Cujo, inadvertently causes more destruction than intended as this playful ghost pup phases through walls and equipment, and the lab ends up in shambles, and Valerie's dad gets fired up because she is the scapegoat, the only person there to see it when it happened, and she is in trouble. The event is the fulcrum on which Valerie's entire world tilts, which is so crazy. It's like just this casual person, but her entire life changes because one thing Danny does. Like, that's insane. Overnight, she goes from an affluent and well-liked person to struggling and ostracized. Her father sells their fancy house, Valerie's expensive lifestyle evaporates, and her so-called friends at school, like Paulina and Star, abandon her when she's no longer one of them, which is kind of shallow. Her personal fall from grace, portrayed with grounded realism, it's the scene that shows her sadly boxing up her trendy clothes, trading for a basic outfit, and arriving at school on an old scooter instead of a sleek car. The whispers through the hallway sting too. Valerie's pride and heartbreak mix into the need for someone to blame, and she directs all her anger at Danny Phantom, who she saw at the lab during the chaos. In her eyes, the ghost boy ruined her life, and it sets up for a compelling parallel. When Danny sees ghost hunting as a duty or even a game at times, for Valerie it could be deeply personal. And then we enter the generous benefactor. Like, we as the audience quickly learn it's Vlad Masters who anonymously provides Valerie with advanced ghost hunting gear and sleek hoverboard. Suddenly, Valerie Gray is reborn as this high-tech ghost hunter, armed with teeth and determination to get revenge on the ghost boy, Danny Fenton. The first confrontation between Danny and Valerie crackles with intensity and misunderstanding. Like, Danny is stunned to find a human hunting him with as much fervor as any ghost villain. Their fight streaks across the city skyline at night, and Valerie's jetpack leaves a trail of neon blue and Danny's ectoblasts glowing green. It kind of reminds me of the Powerpuff Girls, the way it is contrasting one another. In a clever narrative choice, Cujo, that ghost dog, is still at large and often appears in the worst times, complicating encounters, almost as like a side plot to the real emotional beats of Valerie and Danny. During one battle at the park, Cujo shows a non-hostile side, and Danny realizes the ghost dog is just looking for his lost chew toy. Aww. Which happens to be the glowing energy core from Avexian Labs, where her dad works. This is a turning point for Danny. It dawns on him that Cujo isn't malicious, just confused and desperate to reclaim what he's missing. He even empathizes with the pup, attempting to calm it down instead of fighting it outright. Valerie, however, is in no mood for nuance. She sees that Danny is playing with Cujo and assumes that he's in cahoots with all ghosts. Her single-minded drive leads her to endanger bystanders in an effort just to blast Danny. Like, her bitterness is just driving all of her decisions. In turn, it makes Danny realize that even he could sometimes be absent-minded when it comes to other people's safety, and how important it is to not be reckless with your powers. The character development shines in this episode with Danny trying to resonate with Valerie mid-battle, like telling her that not all ghosts mean harm, which is a lesson he just learned himself, making it a lot more impactful. Cujo whimpers at his feet, and Valerie will not hear it, at least not yet. Their clash culminates with Danny saving Valerie from her own overpowered weapon when it malfunctions. He pulls her out of an explosion, and this definitely puzzles and frustrates her. Like, why would an evil ghost boy risk his life to save her? It kind of gives her a glimpse into, like, maybe this isn't so bad, but she's not really ready to accept it yet. By the episode's end, Cujo is peacefully reunited with his toy and fades away, no longer a threat, while Valerie's father miraculously gets his job back, thank God. Courtesy of Vlad's scheming behind the scenes. For Valerie, though, nothing is going to be the same again. She remains suited up, vowing silently on her mission to destroy Danny Fenton, and Danny, on the other hand, carries the burden of being hated by somebody he actually wants to help. Shades of Grey lives up to its title by placing Danny in a morally ambiguous bind. He understands that while Valerie despises Phantom, she doesn't know his true identity or intentions, yet he can't explain himself without exposing his secret. So the emotional weight is heavy. In one scene, Sam and Tucker confront Danny on how to deal with Valerie, but Danny admits, I made a mess by accident, but it's my fault all the same. It's a level of guilt and responsibility we haven't seen in him thus far, and it signals his growth in the hero's journey. This episode adds a layer of richness to the series. Valerie is the first human antagonist in Danny's age range, introducing this vigilante element. Her transformation is given the time and gravity usually reserved for the origin stories in comic books, which is why fans often hold this episode in high esteem. Valerie's arc, also noted by fans and analysis, is one of the most interesting in the show, and it starts here with genuine tragedy, trauma, and anger. The show doesn't paint her as a villain, but as a person driven by extreme measures and circumstances to take down somebody who has harmed her. And of course, Vlad's nudging is super helpful. Musically, Valerie gets her own dynamic theme, like rock guitars and driving beat underscoring her action scenes, which is kind of a stark contrast to the eerie ghost soundscapes. It announces that a human can be just as formidable. And the animation is so cool. Her suit, her hoverboard, it has a cool neon trimmed aesthetic, and the action sequences with her flying through the city are fluid and exciting, almost like a futuristic skateboarder with weaponry. Special mention goes to the animators for Cujo's design, this adorable green puppy that can morph into a snarling guard dog. Like, I think that's adorable. Vlad's manipulation of Valerie, sending the equipment anonymously, hints at his chess master-like role, like further linking standalone episodes into this larger narrative. It establishes the public perception of Danny Phantom being shifted based on the ghost-related fallout, a theme that will reoccur often again. The tone here is more somber, like earlier episodes usually ended in a full return to normalcy, but this one ends with a sense of ongoing conflict. Valerie looks over the city, determined and somewhat sorrowful, as Danny flies away unseen, equally pensive. The audience is left feeling that this this isn't a tidy ending. It's the start of a long, complicated rivalry and friendship. Fans of Danny Phantom dared to show that sometimes doing the right thing can have unintended negative consequences, which is this cool double standard. The emotional palette at the end of the day is no longer is every ghost enemy just a wrong to be righted. Now the fallout is personal. An episode that resonates on rewatch, full of nostalgia for the moment Valerie takes off her red visors. The birth of a ghost huntress whose story intertwines with Danny's in unpredictable ways. Then we have episode 11, Fanning the Flames. So this is a standout episode because of the rock music, supernatural mind control, and teenage romance on one fiery episode. Arguably, season 1's most iconic chapters. The story invites Amber McLean, the ghostly rock star who bursts into scene with a hypnotic song that becomes the latest teen craze in Amity Park. Amber isn't just performing for admiration though, her spectral power focuses on the energy of her audience chanting her name. With each cheer of Amber, her flame-shaped hair blazes brighter, and the guitar riffs send out waves of mind-numbing enchantment. And it's cool because at first they don't know it's a ghost, even though it's ridiculously obvious to the animators, and we get like kind of thrown into it. The youth of Amity Park, including Tucker and most of the school, become memorized with the fans, growing defiant against anybody that doesn't like Amber. At first, Danny and Sam are immune to the music's mind control. Like, Sam naturally is going to be this pop punk person who kind of is like an American reject, and Danny's busy ghost fighting, so he can't really see what's going on. And then when Amber sees that Danny's interfering her concert, she switches tactics, strums a different chord, and casts a love spell on him, causing him to become utterly infatuated with Sam. Yeah, this episode peeks into their relationship in a lot deeper of a way. Suddenly, the episode swerves into a rom-com nightmare. The boy that she secretly likes is now fawning over her, writing her poetry, serenading her, but only because he's bewitched. It's every fangirl's dream, and worst fear rolled into one, delivered with both comedic and heart-tugging moments. Gray DeLisle's voice acting for Sam is fantastic. Like, you can't believe the range this actress has. Not only can she play Sam, but she could play Kimiko from Shaolin Showdown. She could play Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents. Like, she is just in everything. You could hear Sam's internal bewilderment turn to a mix of flustered embarrassment and genuine sorrow for this love that isn't really real. We finally get explicit confirmation that Sam does have deeper feelings for Danny, and it hints that Danny might reciprocate because it's not just magical. Because Danny is cartoonishly smitten, doodling Sam's name in class, attempting grand romantic gestures, which provides a lot of comedy, yet there's the real emotion underneath. A scene in which Sam, trying to break the spell, cruelly rebuffs Danny in front of others, telling him that he's just a friend and to leave her alone. We see Sam's heart break as she says it, tears in her eyes, knowing that she has to hurt him to save him. And it's really sad because it's like going against her own authenticity just to help a friend. And for Danny, as entranced as he is, the rejection is so devastating, serves its intended purpose. It breaks his heart, so the love spell shatters. And I like the idea that like ghostly or like magic type things are immune to real human emotions. Like, that's actually really cool to me. It's surprisingly a poignant moment for the show, and just minutes prior, we had Danny wearing a goofy grin and hugging a bewildered Sam in the school hallway. When the spell lifts, Danny is stunned and a bit hurt by Sam's harsh words, not recalling that they planned it together. Like, Sam acted so convincingly that it felt real. And there's a tender, awkward apology where Sam hastily explains that she had to break his heart to break the spell. And Danny, still red-faced with the whole ordeal, brushes it off with a smile, though you could see a flicker of new awareness in his eyes. Meanwhile, Amber proves to be one of Danny's most formidable foes so far. Her power isn't just physical, though she can shoot energy blasts from her guitar. It's psychological and widespread. The big showdown happens at a full-blown Amber concert at the stadium, where the entire town's teens are chanting Amber in unison like a cult. And I like the premise of like a whole cult mesmerized by this one specific song, and it's pretty catchy if you catch my drift. Danny and Sam execute this really clever plan, like Sam wearing earplugs, and the fact that the parents and kids are clashing due to his anti-adult lyrics. It's so fun. Sam thrashes an out-of-tune chord that disrupts Amber's melody at the crucial moment, and I find that really cool. The combined result breaks Amber's hold on the crowd and their silence, no longer chanting their name. Without Amber's power, she's reduced to a weak flame that Danny easily can capture, and the image of Sam on stage with a guitar saving the day with a punk rock noise is immediately satisfying and symbolizes her reclaiming the situation that preyed on her feelings. This episode is exceptional from a music standpoint. Like, Amber's design is striking, blue-skinned with a fiery ponytail and a sleek goth rocker outfit. The show's artist gave her a visual presence that practically screams rock star and ghost. The music, the song Remember, is undeniably catchy, written for the show and performed as a genuine pop rock song. One of the first times Danny Phantom had a full lyrical song, and it really paid off. Like, to this day, I could recall Amber's anthem, and some fans even use it to hint at her own backstory. Like, the lyrics hint that she died feeling unloved and forgotten, which is why she's obsessed with people remembering her names. Like, what a deep undertone. This unspoken tragic layer made Amber an unexpectedly deep villain. One line of the song that says, "This is how I died," sparks widespread fan speculation that Amber must have been a teen rocker who perished, only famous after death. Though not confirmed, the mere possibility is kinda exciting though. Butch Hartman's commentary on this episode notes that it encapsulates the spirit of Danny Phantom, mixing relatable teen issues with a ghostly fantasy. This episode's tone perfectly blends humorous and heartfelt, and uses a supernatural element like a love spell to externally manifest something really real, the budding love between two best friends. And in doing so, it addresses how love can distract even a hero, like Danny, incapacitated by the emotions, to the point where Tucker has to slap him into focus. The moral might be that true feelings shouldn't be manipulated, or true love can't be forced. It must come naturally, or honestly. And by the episode's end, the status quo between Danny and Sam returns to a playful platonic banter, but there's definitely an added layer of closeness. The final shot, as Sam playfully mocks Danny's bad poetry from under the spell, and Danny blushes, like, it leaves us with warm fuzzies. In the grand narrative, Fanning the Flames deepens the theme of bonding, Danny's relationships with Sam, growing stronger through adversity, and thanks to Amber's memorable debut, we see that not all ghosts are monstrous or goofy. They can sometimes be charismatic and strike you at the heart. This chapter is often going to be remembered as Amber You Will Remember. Next we have episode 12, Teacher of the Year. After a romantic and musical whirlwind from the previous episode, Teacher of the Year brings focus into the balancing act between Danny's school and responsibilities. With a hearty dose of gaming culture and humor, we find Danny and Tucker in a familiar teenage territory, utterly obsessed with online multiplayer video games, a thinly veiled parody of the contemporary MMORPGs. They've been staying up all night playing, and surprisingly, Danny bombs an important test as a result. Second time we have Danny suffering in school. Mr. Lancer, the stern yet caring English teacher, is disappointed but not ready to give up on Danny. In a refreshing twist, instead of a typical trope of an unforgiving educator, Lancer offers Danny a second chance, an opportunity to study and retake the test. It sets a rare scenario in motion that Danny must prioritize academics even as ghosts threaten to interfere. It's kind of like a reflection of his self-worth and what he needs to do for his self-care in order to be an individual, something he can't forget just because he's a ghost hunter. And it kind of emphasizes his commitment to normal life versus ghost life. Meanwhile, the ghost Technus comes back for round 2, and this time he's leveled up by escaping into the very video game that Danny and Tucker love. Once inside, Technus uses his powers to cheat and attempt world domination through the cyber realm, which comically has real-world consequences. As Technus gains more points and power-ups in the game, electrical disturbances ripple through Amity Park, hinting that if he wins the game, he might actually control the world's technology. The concept is fun and definitely very early 2000s, tapping into the era's growing fascination and parental fears of kids being too plugged into their video games. I mean, I remember when I was that age, and my parents were like, if you look at the TV too long, you're going to die. Well, they didn't say die, but you know what I mean. Like, they thought we were going to be harmed in the long term. And hey, maybe we are, but I don't know. I'm still going to play my Switch too. In this episode, we got a lot of character development with the discipline and mentorship of Mr. Lancer. We get a deeper look too, like behind his literary exclamations like Hamlet or Beowulf when angry. He just calls out those things casually. I don't even know how he does that. He's a teacher who genuinely cares about his students' learning. There's a charming study montage where Lancer personally tutors Danny after school for a retest, revealing his passion for Shakespeare and rubbing it off just a little on Danny, who can't help but compare Hamlet's indecision to his own ghost dilemmas. It's a neat reflection where Danny is caught between choices, much like the classic literary heroes that Lancer always references. On the friend front, Sam's role here is small but crucial. She's the one not sucked into the game mania, so she can actually help Danny realize he needs to get his act together. Tucker provides a comedic relief because he's even more addicted than Danny, to a point where he sneaks a handheld console into class, which is pretty relevant and I feel like more important than ever. We see Tucker's escapism, that he'd rather grind for XP than study vocab, and it's such a relatable teen impulse. When Technus sucks Danny, and by accident Sam and Tucker, into the game's digital world for one last showdown, the episode shifts into this vibrant video game aesthetic. The animation style adapts to this trio of game avatars, and Danny becomes a knight with a glowing sword, Sam's a sorceress, and Tucker is a techno-gadgeteer, something that we couldn't see them actually happen in the real life. The designs are clear nods to the RPG trope, tropes and definitely a fun visual twist. It also allows for some meta humor, like at one point Sam reminds Danny that since it's a game, he can exploit game logic, like cheat codes or health packs, to fight Technus. Danny, hearing this, smirks and effectively uses his ghost powers as like cheat codes, flying past levels and blasting Technus through a glitch portal. The battle is wrapped up in this tongue-in-cheek way. Technus is defeated not just by Danny's heroics, but by the trio's nerdy knowledge of game exploits. The final blow comes with Technus trapped in a bug in the game's code, causing him to rage quit inadvertently, an outcome that is both amusing and fitting. The episode sprinkles video game-like sound effects like 8-bit chimes and victory fanfares reminiscent of Final Fantasy. And the title Teacher of the Year itself is humorous, as one thinks it refers to Lancer, but in context, Danny himself becomes a teacher to Technus in how to not underestimate young gamers. There's a subplot where Mr. Lancer secretly is an online gamer too, which is revealed as the heroes emerge from the game, and he's in the classroom. It's just definitely really funny and parallels the kids' games really well. And instead of scolding them for their adventure, Lancer gives a sheepish smile, implying that even a stern teacher indulges in digital escapism now and then, something I find super relevant. The episode's morality gently nudges at the importance of balance. Danny learns that he can't just slack off on school because of the ghost hunting. He has to find a way to do both, a theme that many young viewers juggling hobbies and homework could relate to. There's also a nod to responsibility. Given the second chance, Danny does knuckle down and ends up acing the test. It's satisfying to see Danny succeed through studying, not only just through ghost heroics, showcasing that his journey isn't about just external monsters, but overcoming his own procrastination and priorities. Nostalgically, this episode might not pack the emotional punches like the last two, but it's fondly remembered for its geeky charm and insight into Danny's everyday struggles, while also adding a little depth to Amity Park and what they value. Importantly, it's a breather episode. This season needs to slow down its pace and recharge us before some more intense episodes follow. It subtly furthers Danny's growth and shows that he's just getting better and better by the episode. The next chapter is episode 13, Fright Night. So every great supernatural series needs a Halloween episode. Danny Fenton delivers it twice, I'm pretty sure, and this one is Fright Night, a spooky, action-packed romp that also teaches Danny a thing or two about honesty. So the setup is clear. Casper High's annual Halloween haunted house competition is underway, and Mr. Lancer basically seizes the moment as this teachable experience and offers Danny and his rival Dash a chance to avoid detention by competing to see who can create the scariest haunted house for the school carnival. The stakes, bragging rights, and avoiding punishment. And for Danny, the added incentive to finally one-up Dash at something legitimate. At first, Danny's confident. After all, he does have real ghost powers at his disposal. Sam, who's the moral compass, cautions him to win fair and square instead of supernatural help. As they build their respective haunted houses, Dash with a football frat house with cheap jump scares, and Danny with a more intellectual ghostly graveyard vibe, thanks to Sam's goth creativity, Danny becomes increasingly frustrated. Dash's natural popularity draws in more visitors despite he's not as quality as him. It looks more like Dash might win despite all the hard work. And in a moment of weakness and competitive drive, Danny decides to tip the scales by borrowing a particularly terrifying artifact from the Ghost Zone, the enchanted sword of the Fright Night, who is essentially the ghost of Halloween himself. The Soul Shredder is said to make any place it's planted in the scariest place on Earth. Sure enough, once Danny plants this menacing blade into his haunted house setup, things get a lot more chilling and take on a life of their own. The lights unnaturally dim, and the students' fears manifest as illusions, and Danny's house suddenly surpasses Dash's in a sheer scare factor. Danny basks in his initial success. He's got Dash quaking in his cleats. However, ghostly fine print comes into play. By removing the sword, Danny unbeknowingly frees its owner, the Fright Night, from centuries of imprisonment. The Fright Night is a skeletal specter clad in armor, definitely Halloween vibes, riding in a nightmarish black horse, wielding a pumpkin-headed sword, and once awakened, he doesn't take kindly to a punk kid stealing his blade. He unleashes a wave of real terror across Amity Park, turning the quaint carnival into a scene from a horror movie. Carnival rides come alive as monsters, jack-o'-lanterns grow fangs, and everybody's worst fears start to play out. In a particularly dramatic sequence, Mr. Lancer, under a fear spell, cowers from an imagined onslaught of English essays, which is kind of funny, and Dash is captured by ghosts in football jerseys, far scarier than Danny's earlier pretend costumes. The character dynamics get intense as Danny realizes he's in over his head. His desire to win compromises his usual judgment and and now his friends and everybody else are in real danger. There's a telling moment when Sam confronts Danny amidst the chaos with a disappointed, "You had to cheat, didn't you?" And Danny's remorseful face speaks volumes. With humility, Danny steps up to right his wrong. The battle with the Fright Night is one of the more visually stunning this season, and the nighttime aerial duel, lit by a full moon and flickering orange fires and burning carnival props, the animators leaned into the Halloween aesthetic really well. At one point, Danny gets slammed through a giant cotton candy machine, emerging ghostly sticky. The Fright Night, voiced by the menacing Graduar, an awesome cameo by Michael Dorn, famously a Star Trek guy, taunts Danny's lack of honor and declares him unworthy of the sword. And Danny's right, he's like, yeah, I guess I'm dishonorable for my short. To defeat the Fright Night, Danny has to use brawn instead of brain, remembering a ghost story that Jack told him earlier about the knight's sword being his tether. Danny lures the Fright Night back into the haunted house, and in a clever reversal, he exploits the very contest's rules. He and Dash had agreed to sabotage each other's houses earlier with pranks, so Danny knew of the hidden trap door from his own setup. He tricks the Fright Night into lunging and uses the old stage magic mirror to reflect the knight's own fear aura back at him, briefly weakening the ghost, and in a split second, Danny's able to grab the soul shredder and plants it back into the enchanted tree stump, the one piece of decor he had borrowed from the ghost zone. So he's kind of undoing his cheating. The stump seals and pulls Fright Night back in, locking him away once again. And immediately, the supernatural darkness lifts, leaving only the typical Halloween night crispness and a lot of confused carnival goers. The aftermath involves a lot of humor and gentle morale. Dash ironically is credited by the oblivious crowd as having orchestrated the entire thing, thus being crowned the winner of the contest. And Danny can't protest, because he's like, this is my sign of growth. I need to be honest. He knows he didn't earn the victory, and besides, he's just relieved everybody's safe. Lancer gives both of them a pass on detention, which is a nice win, and mutters something about being more terrified of marking essays tonight, which is so funny. Sam and Tucker stick by Danny the whole time, even teasing him about how his real ghosts turned into a fun Friday night. Danny takes the insult in stride and acknowledges he's messed up with some gratitude that his friends helped set it right. It's a nice Ghostbusters style moment where the trio walk off, exhausted and coated in Halloween goop, agreeing that the next year they'll just trick or treat like normal kids. The Fright Night's introduction isn't a one-off. Savvy viewers might know his connection to a looming figure named Pariah Dark, but that's in season 2. So here he serves a dual purpose, being a formidable villain and escalate the tension in the season, symbolizing the temptation Danny faces to misuse his powers and advantages. The theme's clear. Shortcuts and cheats might give quick success, but they carry heavy costs. It's a lesson that Danny has flirted with before, like in Attack of the Killer Garage Sale, but here it nearly costs lives. In terms of tone, the episode is both a love letter to Halloween horror and a solid piece of character storytelling. It balances campy scares with genuine consequences, leaving Danny a bit wiser by the end. Nostalgically, fans might remember this one for its classic spooky atmosphere and the cool design of Fright Night. Who doesn't love a good ghost on a flaming horse? Many Halloween marathons of cartoons include this episode, as it stands strong even on its own. As a chapter in our narrative, Fright Night represents the season's late midpoint, one of the last of Act 2, and Danny is confronted by the worst that could happen when he missteps. As he tees up for Act 3 with a humbler, more conscious mindset, it's time for some real revelations and growth from him. Then we get episode 13. After a spine-chilling Halloween escapade, episode 14 plays with the unluckiest number of all, 13, delivering a ghost story entwined with teenage rebellion and sibling trust. The episode title itself is a clever pun. It introduces Johnny 13, this greaser-style biker who, true to form, comes with a shadowy companion and brings bad luck to anything it touches. It kind of reminds me of Grease. That would be so crazy if he sung one of the songs from Grease. Wouldn't we love that? But the heart of the episode is definitely Jazz. Danny's usual straight-laced, ghost-averse older sister takes center stage as she unexpectedly swoons over Johnny when he appears in town as this handsome human bad boy, which was such a common trope at the time. Jazz typically is the rational one and finds Johnny's leather jacket and motorcycle mystique a thrilling escape from her image as this prime overachiever. And unbeknownst to her, Johnny 13's interest is anything but innocent. He's definitely looking for a new host for his girlfriend's spirit, and a naive Jazz fits the bill. As Jazz starts ditching study sessions and sneaking out to ride Johnny's bike, Danny grows suspicious, flipping the protective side onto him, and it's both comedic and touching as he tails them invisibly on their date. He nearly blows a gasket when Johnny tries to kiss Jazz, and it's this classic little brother behavior, ghost powers or not, which I love that it's connected, that grounded to a teenager's life. And meanwhile, the girlfriend, Kitty, Johnny's ghost girlfriend, lurks in his sentiment shadow, known as Shadow. The Shadow has its own presence, a black, shape-shifting, feline-like specter that skulks around causing mishaps. One running gag is how Tucker becomes an inadvertent victim of Shadow's mischief each time he tries to help Danny survive Jazz. He slips on banana peels, a black cat crosses him when he vanishes, and he even gets a literal rain cloud over his head, which is kind of a funny, smart B-plot with the whole bad luck Tuck of the episode. As the events unfold, the tone shifts from a breezy teen drama to kind of creepy suspense. Johnny accelerates his plan at a secluded lover's lane under the full moon, and Shadow pins Jazz into the place where Kitty's disembodied voice began possessing her. Isn't that insane? He catches Jazz's eyes to glow green. It's a surprisingly intense scene with Jazz in a trance, half her face momentarily turning ghostly with Kitty's features as the possession that nearly is complete. And at the last second, Danny, the Phantom, intervenes, having fully convinced Sam and Tucker that Jazz is in mortal danger, or immortal danger, I guess. As a fight breaks out, this is just as much emotional as it is physical. Jazz is partially overshadowed by Kitty and lashes out at Danny, accusing him of being jealous and not wanting her to be happy, hitting an actual nerve for Danny because earlier in this episode, Jazz lambasted him for being overprotective even when she's just trying to live a little. Now, possessed Jazz is twisting the knife, and Danny does not want to hurt his sister, giving Shadow and Johnny the advantage. But here's where Jazz's internal strength shines. In a moment of remarkable willpower, Jazz fights off Kitty's control from within. She realizes Danny was just trying to warn her. She manages to delay the possession, giving Danny the window to rally. And in a clever move, Danny taunts Johnny and Kitty's jealousy issues, something that Johnny had grumbled about, ironically, to Jazz earlier. And enraged, Kitty's spirit leaves Jazz to confront Johnny directly, causing a lover's spat between the ghostly couple. And they're so busy arguing that Danny easily vacuum sucks them into the Fenton thermos mid-argument. The Shadow loses its power, dissipates, and frees Tucker from the literal anvil of bad luck that was following him up until this point. The resolution is both sweet and a little humorous. Jazz, fully herself again, is mortified that she fell for the ghost's ploy and thanks Danny in Phantom form for saving her. Notably, Danny doesn't reveal his identity. Jazz plays along as if Danny Phantom is a separate person, keeping his secret even while acknowledging her own lapse in judgment. It's an interesting beat, like Jazz could have said, like, Danny, I know it's you, but instead she nods respectfully and addresses him as the Phantom. It shows Jazz's continued commitment to letting Danny keep his secret. On a lighter side, Tucker, covered in bandages and talismans, is ecstatic that his curse is finally gone. Lucky him. 13 is one of those episodes that highlights Danny Phantom's ability to genre hop within its core concept. Like, it's teen romance, cautionary tale, ghost thriller. It's a sibling bond story all in once. The motif runs through it, and it's not just Johnny's name and the episode number, but in how things just keep going wrong unluckily until truth prevails. It's a subtle message about trusting your gut and the people who truly care about you. Like, Jazz wants independence, but has to discern between someone respecting her or someone using her, and Danny had to learn to trust Jazz's judgment to a degree and only intervene when absolutely necessary. A lesson in giving loved ones space until they are ready for you to back them up. The 2D animation in the show often has a more flat style, giving it this creepy fluidity, and it styles under doors and stretches with almost this like oil slick texture. The visual of Jazz nearly becoming Kitty is definitely a memorable, scary image that shows the stakes in the episode. Johnny 13 and Kitty's 1950s aesthetic with this like James Dean with a deadly shadow. It definitely has like this really cool vibe to it and adds a retro flair. Perhaps a nod to the ghosts that represent old eras and unresolved issues. It definitely sparks discussions because it sets up elements for the very next episode, Lucky in Love, where Kitty returns with another scheme. And thus 13 and episode 15 kind of feel like a two-parter in spirit, though they definitely stand alone too. Nostalgically, viewers recall 13 for its blend of sibling moments and comedic torment of Tucker. It's also one of those few episodes where Jazz is directly involved with ghost action, showing her growth since learning Danny's secret. She's not fighting with ghosts per se, but she's become part of a supernatural narrative in a way that she hadn't before. Overall, 13 is this multifaceted chapter reminding us that even in a show about ghosts, sometimes the scariest thing for a teen to navigate is first love and trusting your family's advice, even if your boyfriend's a dark shadow following him. As season 1 starts to enter Act 3, the stakes rise and the emotional landscape deepens. The final episodes form the climax and resolution of Danny's inaugural journey. From the very beginning, bringing secrets to light and forging stronger bonds amidst escalating threats. If Act 1 was about setup, Act 2 was about conflict and exploration. This is where the characters confront the consequences from the earlier actions and embrace change. The season's crucible of revelation and growth. So in the home stretch, Danny faces challenges that strike closer to the heart. His reputation in Amity Park is put on the line, leading him to experience fear and isolation and being seen as a villain. His friendships and budding romances are tested by deception and mind games, with family relationships reaching new levels of understanding. A mother and son connect in ways they never have, a father and son bond. Meanwhile, a once vengeful peer learns to fight alongside Danny rather than against him, hinting at forgiveness and empathy breaking through vengeance. Notably, Act 3 sees Danny's arc of responsibility come full circle. He's no longer the hesitant boy of episode 1, but a young hero who's tasted both failure and triumph, now forging his own identity with the convictions. The tone across these episodes is nostalgically reflective and emotionally resilient. Like, there's a sense of maturity, even as ghostly hijinks continue, that outcomes carry weight. Animation-wise, the show doesn't shy away from epic set pieces and a city-wide ghost invasion and high-flying battle in a circus tent to intimate duels in the Florida Everglades. By the end of Act 3, Season 1 feels like a complete journey. Danny evolved from a nervous newbie with powers he barely controlled to a confident guardian of his town who understands why he is a hero and not just how. His relationships with Sam, Tucker, and Jazz, even his parents, tightened, built on trust and proven through trials. The seeds sown throughout the season, like Vlad's simmering schemes, Valerie's uncertain path, and ghosts who might return, set the stage for future adventures even as this chapter finds its own satisfying conclusion. But let's dive into how Season 1 truly wraps itself up with these last 5 episodes. Episode 15 is Public Enemies. So Public Enemies bursts forth as one of Season 1's most high-octane episodes, dropping Danny into a nightmare scenario, defending a city that he thinks he's its enemy. The antagonist is a familiar face, Walker, that ghost warden from episode 8, and he nurses a serious grudge against Danny from his breakout stunt, which I would too. Walker's plan is methodical and menacing. It's to orchestrate a massive ghost invasion of Amity Park, tarnish Danny Fenton's image, and capture him. Overnight, the sky turns green and swirling ectoplasmic clouds from the skeleton prison guards. They pour through the portal, and the invasion is a buffet of callbacks. We see ghosts Danny defeated earlier in the season, like the Lunch Lady and Box Ghost, now under Walker's command, rampaging across town. And it's the first time we see the whole city in a ghost panic. And ironically, the citizens' terror is directed as much at Danny as it is the ghosts, which is cool because it's definitely the dark moment of the soul if the series is supposed to have one. As we get into Act 3, this is like exactly what we look for in a full narrative story like this. What makes the conflict especially gut-wrenching is Danny's parents, like Jack and Maddie donning their ghost hunting jumpsuits, joining the fray to protect Amity Park, not realizing, of course, that their son is the ghostly figure trying to help. There's tense sequences where Jack and Maddie chase Danny through the streets with their gadgets and the ghost assault vehicle, and they're just like convinced that he is the malevolent spirit, though he normally banters and teases them while intangible, which is kind of funny. He definitely dodges their ectoblasts while focusing on herding civilians to safety. One scene stands out, particularly like Danny saving a little girl from the poltergeist's grip, only for the child's mother to yank her away, screaming at Danny, which is kind of a deep and dark moment. A tabloid news chopper films it all. Within minutes, the media has labeled Danny as public ghost enemy number 1. The heartbreak on Danny's face is palpable, and he's never sought credit for his heroics, but being vilified is definitely a worse experience. In the thick of things, Danny finds an unexpected ally, Wolf, which is this werewolf-like ghost with a unique ability to claw open dimension portal. Initially, Wolf is one of Walker's enforcers sent to track down Danny, but Wolf is much more misunderstood than malicious. He doesn't speak English, communicating in only growls and a ghostly language that Danny can't decipher, and seems unwilling as a partner to Walker. When Wolf causes collateral damage at a construction site, he stops to rescue a construction worker from falling, a glimpse of nobility that Danny notices. In a pivotal moment, Danny chooses compassion over combat, and instead of finishing Wolf off, he frees him from Walker's control collar, which is a really sweet moment, and he is very grateful for it. Wolf turns on Walker's goons and later plays a crucial role in dismantling the invasion by slashing portals that suck many ghosts back into the ghost zone. This marks a turning point for Danny. It's the first time he befriends a ghost on equal terms, seeing seeing that even the supposed enemies can have good hearts. Wolf's introduction expands on Danny's perspective that not all ghosts are monsters, reinforcing this season's recurring themes that there's a lot of moral shades of gray, or green, in these ghostly aura terms. The climax sees Danny and Wolf team up directly against Walker. Walker is prideful and furious and overshadows the mayor, uses the authority to publicly demand Danny Phantom's capture. It leads to a surreal scene where human police, overseen by Walker and Mayor, surround Danny with weapons drawn, and Jack and Maddie aim their bazookas literally at him too. It's like a firing squad. Danny stands in the center, exhausted but defiant, his hands raised in not a surrender but a plea for trust and understanding from the human. It's Wolf who disrupts the standoff, creating a portal that yanks Walter and his ecto posse away at the last second, sparing Danny on the all-out assault. As the dust settles, the ghosts are gone, but the damage is done. News outlets and much of the town are remained convinced that Danny Phantom led this invasion. One poignant beat, Danny invisibly observes a town hall meeting where officials declare him as a menace, and when he hears his parents argue about the Phantom and how it's evil, a flicker of hope as Maddie recalls the Phantom saving them once from episode 8. But the public sentiment is largely against him now, and Danny realizes this isn't a battle he could punch or blast his way out of. He saved people who cursed his own name. That's heroism at its purest, and it matures him. There's a somber scene at the end where Sam and Tucker try to console Danny at their usual rooftop hangout, and Tucker jokes that he needs like new PR strategies, which is kind of funny, and Sam pats Danny's shoulder, saying that the people who matter know the truth. Danny gives a small, grateful smile, but you could tell the ordeal left a mark, and he's accepted being a hero and how that means he's going to be misunderstood. And this is kind of like a reference to Spider-Man's whole menace reputation. Like, I know Butch Hartman was a big fan of that series, so you could see the connection here more than anywhere. Public Enemies is one of the most ambitious episodes for sure, because of the scale and theme, which is exactly why I think it counts as the dark moment of the whole first season. It cements the idea that Danny Phantom can handle broader stories affecting the whole community, and not just individual encounters, but I like how long it took us to work up to a bigger scope issue like this, as opposed to just Amity Park being in danger all the time. Like the first episode, we had Casper High in danger, then we had a bunch of individuals, and now we're slowly migrating to a bigger ordeal. This episode is kind of a fan favorite because it's Danny in new territory as a character, and how people were outraged on his behalf, but that's what deepened the love for Danny. Seeing him persist with integrity despite the city's scorn made him a true hero in our eyes, and the introduction of Wolf, a gentle giant ghost, adds heart. I mean, who didn't tear up at Wolf scratching Danny? It's definitely a seminal chapter where the season-long threads weave into one another. Walker's arrogance and the public mistrust brewing since Shades of Grey and Danny's evolving heroism. Then we have episode 16, Lucky in Love. So in Lucky in Love, Danny gets a new taste of his wildest dreams and learns it might not be what he truly wants. The episode kicks off with a bang. During a routine ghostly battle, Danny saves his longtime crush, Pauline, from a ghostly danger. In the process, Pauline accidentally sees Danny transform back into human form. This is the stuff for Danny's fantasies. The most popular girl in school discovering he's the cool ghost boy and being impressed. But to his astonishment, not only does Paulina keep his secret, but suddenly showers Danny Fenton with attention at school. By lunch period, Paulina, the untouchable queen bee, is claiming that Danny is her boyfriend. So overnight, Danny catapults from a wallflower to the big man on campus, complete with dating Paulina, a scenario that he only thought would be in his dreams. Sam and Tucker are obviously skeptical. Sam in particular eyes this development with a mix of suspicion in disguised jealousy, and up until now, Paulina only had her eyes on Danny's ghost form. She famously had a crush on this guy, who she called Invisibill. I kind of like that name though. That should have been the whole series. So why all of a sudden love for regular Danny? The audience soon gets clued in. Kitty, the ghost from episode 14, is back, and she's the puppet master. After Johnny 13 and Kitty's love spat in 13, Kitty's angry at Johnny and wants to make him jealous, so she overshadowed Pauline, using the popular girl as a disguise to publicly woo Danny Phantom. And she's just trying to make him really jealous, so he comes crawling back. And if Kitty can ruin Danny's reputation as a side bonus by making him reject Paulina publicly, all the better. Ghosts can be vindictive. For Danny, these are great days at first. He's dating the girl he once hung posters of in his locker. Paulina, who is real Kitty, is dating, calling him pet names and even cheering him on during the school assembly. And Tucker is lapping on Danny's changes in fortune, enjoying perks like invites to popular kid parties, and this is where you see what really matters to Tucker specifically. Like, I like his growing affinity toward being popular. As Sam's discomfort grows, there's a poignant scene where Sam tries to caution Danny, hinting that Pauline's interest is too good to be true. But Danny subconsciously is defensive because Sam's right on some level, and he just wants to believe that dreams can come true, but what is that at the cost of their friendship? The emotional tension is carefully interwoven with comedic beats like Danny's hilarious panic at how to act on a date at a fancy restaurant, where he ends up fighting off a ghost attack in the bathroom without Kitty or Paulina noticing. But the turning point is the carnival date. Kitty's true motive surfaces. She corners Danny as Paulina atop the Ferris wheel and delivers an ultimatum in a very un-Polly-like snarl. If Danny doesn't remain her dotting boyfriend and effectively spurn all others like Paulina, she'll reveal his identity to the whole town, and it becomes a little bit of a blackmail moment, which I kinda like in sitcoms. In that moment, Danny realizes two things: that this isn't the Paulina he knows, and that he's utterly trapped. Publicly, now he must play the role of Paulina's smitten beau or risk exposure, a fate that fans knew can be catastrophic for his parents and everybody else, especially being public enemy number one. This leads to a comedic yet nerve-wracking sequence where Sam and Tucker help Danny try to break this overshadowing without tipping off Kitty. It's like Sam swallows her jealousy to assist, which it teaches us that she has a lot of character growth. She dresses as a fortune teller in the school's Mardi Gras themed dance, and Sam conjures up a plan to trick Kitty, leveraging Kitty's own jealousy, hinting that Johnny 13 is flirting with other girls in the ghost zone. So she gets enraged, loses focus, and slips out of Pauline's body to confront the imaginary cheating Johnny. And Danny seizes the moment to capture her in the thermos. Paulina is freed, faints, and doesn't remember anything, so the immediate threat is over. But there is aftermath to consider. The next school day, Paulina has no recollection of the past week's relationship and is beyond fuzzy in the mind. Danny quietly confirms that they're not a couple, and Paulina, as superficial as always, shrugs and just dusts it off and goes on to the next shiny thing, a goth guy with a moody vibe. The rumor mill about Danny lying is quickly quelled by Paulina's own indifference. But where does that leave Danny and Sam? The episode's final scene has them at their lockers, and Danny awkwardly admits that life as Paulina's boyfriend wasn't what he expected. Thanks, Danny, that's really sweet, I guess. Sam tries to hide her relief and jokes that maybe he'll appreciate the normalcy and true friends a bit more. And then Danny does something pretty mature. He directly thanks Sam for looking out for him and apologizes for not listening to her gut feeling. It's a small moment, but Sam's eyes light up. The lovers' quarrel is resolved, and the status quo is restored with a hint of deeper affection as it was before. The episode nudges Danny closer to recognizing what and who truly matters. This whole running gag and subplot since episode 2 symbolically ends here. Danny emerges not necessarily in love with Sam yet, but the seed is firmly planted, and he sees how deeply she cares for him versus Paulina's superficiality. Sam, on the other hand, grows too. She has to let Danny make his mistake and be there to help, rather than just sulking. In fandom, people often cite this episode as the one where Danny's eyes started to open regarding Sam, though it'll take until season 3 to actually pay that off. But the groundwork is clearly laid. It feels like a light breather episode on the surface, especially coming after the intensity of Public Enemies, but it's a significant emotional checkpoint. Like, it gently steers the Danny and Sam relationship forward and closes the chapter on Danny's childhood fantasies, signifying his progression into someone who values real connection over image. And as a nostalgic note, many fans have a soft spot for this episode, precisely because it's the first one where we see Danny choosing Sam's friendship. Next is episode 17, Maternal Instinct. So this episode plays like a mini family drama wrapped in ghostly deceit, shining a spotlight on Danny's relationship with his mom, Maddie, and pushing the ongoing rivalry with Vlad Masters to a boiling point. The episode title is a clever double entendre. It references Maddie's earnest attempt to bond with her distant son, as well as Vlad's twisted parental instincts toward Danny. And it starts pretty innocent, like Maddie notices Danny's been evasive and seemingly troubled, understandable, given the fact he's public enemy number 1 and she doesn't know. And in an effort to reconnect, she invites Danny to accompany on a prestigious science symposium in Florida as a mother-son road trip. Danny feels a tinge of guilt for how often he sneaks around behind her back fighting, but he reluctantly agrees, deciding it might be nice to spend time away from Jack's loud antics and his ghost responsibilities. They arrive at a luxurious estate where the symposium is being hosted, and surprise, it's Vlad Masters hosting it, who conveniently funded the event and extended the invite to Maddie. From the moment Vlad greets them, the atmosphere brims with tension and the audience can cut it with a knife. Maddie, still oblivious to Vlad's half-ghost identity and a long-harbored obsession with her, thinks he's just an old friend being extremely generous. Danny, however, knows something's off, and his ghost sense can pick on it too. Vlad plays the perfect gentleman host, whining and dining Maddie and praising her intellect, and providing separate, sumptuous guest rooms, all while throwing Danny subtle, knowing smarks, saying, "I've got you under my roof." And it's kind of terrifying. Danny is caught in a bind. He can't outright expose Vlad without explaining how he knows and revealing his own ghost identity. And he doesn't want to ruin that or his mom's trip. Vlad's intentions unfold in layers. Like, first he tries to win over Danny with kindness, showing his high-tech lab, and even saves Danny from a booby-trapped experiment he arranged, which is kind of funny. Feigning heroics, to impress Maddie. He's laid the groundwork to make Danny doubt Jack's competence and see Vlad as a better father figure, and simultaneously Vlad orchestrates a ghost attack back in Amity Park. His vengeful side sends a pack of vulture-like ghosts to assault Fenton Works and take Jack out of the picture. The subplot is scary and kind of hilarious because Jack and Jazz are at home and the spectral vultures attack the place, and Jazz ends up being the only one to rally and defend the house, which is crazy. And Jack becomes pretty mildly injured in the fray, and Jazz, armed with the Fenton bazooka, blasts the vultures into oblivion, surprising even herself, which is kind of a cheer-worthy moment, seeing how Jazz can be this superhero as well. It kind of reminds me of Ben 10 again, where we have Gwen learning all the magic and being an ally. That's kind of how Jazz treats Danny. And I don't know why those shows are so connected. I swear, it all rings the same to me. Back in Florida, the emotional core hits when Vlad corners Danny alone in the mansion's observatory. With a sweeping view of the moonlit Everglades behind them, Vlad drops the amiable mask and essentially offers Danny a bargain. Stay here with me, I can teach you, nurture your powers, and we could be a family. It's a sweet poison that Vlad's been brewing all this time, and he wants Danny as an heir. And we're like a little bit nervous about it, but we know for sure he's not gonna go for it. Despite any normal teen's grievances with their dad, Danny does love Jack and sees through Vlad's manipulation. He retorts that Vlad isn't half the man Jack is, and that makes Vlad snap. The veneer of civility shatters, and he goes full Plasmius, red eyes, fangs bared. The ensuing fight is intense. They blast through walls and even out into the swampy night, and it feels like a choreographed musical number. It's so intense. Vlad's anger lends him even more power, and he overwhelms Danny, knocking him into quicksand. And it looks dire at first, but then Maddie arrives with one of Vlad's own ghost weapons, the Spectre Deflector Belt, takes him down. It delivers a massive shock and sends Vlad howling in pain. And it's cool and interesting because she could still fight this ghost, save Danny, without necessarily seeing that Vlad has a bad side yet, which I love that it's hidden still. Cornered between a suspicious Maddie and a weapon, Vlad concocts a cover story and says he was under ghost attack too, and the ghost boy must have escaped, only furthering the narrative against Danny. The denouement back in Amity Park is surprisingly tender, like Maddie returns home with Danny earlier than planned, having felt something off about the trip. The two share a quiet moment in the lab where Maddie admits she wanted this trip to bond, but maybe she doesn't need a fancy symposium to bond with her son. Danny's kind of touched and reassures her that even though he's growing up and can be distant, that he treasures their relationship. It's an emotional payoff for the maternal through line. The audience sees that unlike Vlad's twisted view of family, Danny and Maddie's love is genuine and strong, and even if ghosts complicate it. Meanwhile, Vlad, nursing his pride and minor burns, laments in his mansion as his plots failed. Vlad mutters to himself that if he can't win through kindness, he'll move to a more direct approach henceforth, which really excites the audience because it's like, ooh, what's he gonna do? Maternal Instinct is a rich episode that progresses the overarching Danny versus Vlad story while exploring the family dynamics. It juxtaposes Vlad's perverse notion of fatherhood against Jack's earnest but clumsy real fatherhood. The episode's events quietly clue Maddie and Jazz closer to the truth. Jazz sees she's capable of ghost fighting and enjoys it, and Maddie witnesses Vlad's unsettling obsession firsthand, though not fully comprehending it yet. And even Jack, in a comedic hospital scene, apologizes to Jazz for dismissing her interests, bonding over the ghost hunting magazines. The instincts of both Fenton parents prove right. Visually, the Florida estate and swamps provide a nice change of scenery, drawn with a moody Spanish moss and stately architecture that gives the episode a gothic novel feel, a fitting stage for Vlad's attempted seduction on the dark side. And the music actually delivers Vlad a really good join me speech, subdued and tragic, almost making you feel a tinge of pity for him. After all, Vlad is pretty lonely, even if it's his own making. When the action hits, the score swells heroically for Maddie's arrival, and I really like how exciting it is where she comes in to save the day for an episode called Maternal Instinct. It's very nice. Next we have episode 18, Life Lessons. So Life Lessons forces two of Amity Park's most determined foes, Danny Fenton and Valerie Gray, to walk a mile in each other's shoes, or rather float a mile in each other's hover boots. It's the episode that could have been a simple gimmick, hero and hunter handcuffed together, but it delivers a significant character development and a peek at what might have been a romantic spark under different circumstances. It starts as a classic high school trope, like health class, parenting assignment, where students must pair up to care for an infant or dummy. In this case, it's a sack of flour as their baby. And to Danny's horror, he's paired with Valerie Gray. At this point in the series, Valerie has become a formidable ghost hunter and still blames Danny Fenton for ruining her life, unaware that Danny Fenton is the same one, which which, how do you not realize that through the names? I feel like he's not even trying to hide it. The two can barely contain their disdain for each other, even as classmates, and the idea of them cooperating on the assignment is laughable. The early scenes show them bickering and everything, with Valerie insisting the name of the flour sack be Spike and keeping a rigid schedule, while Danny, distracted by ghost alarms in his head, is labeled as a slacker dad by Valerie, which is not a good look for him, Danny. Sam and Tucker watch with some amusement and a bit of worry, noting that Danny's two worlds, school and ghost fighting, are crashing together in a very personal way. The reluctant partnership is interrupted when Skulker enters the picture again with a diabolical plan, still eager to claim Danny's pelt and noticing Valerie as a threat. Skulker decides to challenge both by kidnapping them and dropping them on a floating island in the ghost zone. Ooh, this is a cool twist. To make his game more interesting, he shackles Danny and Valerie together with unbreakable ghost energy, handcuffing them to the flower baby. With Skulker darkly amused, he calls it their offspring, and he gives them an ultimatum: survive this hunt without letting any harm come to their child, or neither of them leaves the island alive. Skulker then gleefully starts the hunt, turning the ghost zone nature preserve into a deadly jungle of traps. And the comedic irony is pretty rich. Danny and Valerie, who couldn't stand working together as lab partners, now must literally coordinate every step. Like, early attempts at one-upmanship fail spectacularly, with Valerie trying to jetpack off the island, or Danny's weight coordination accidentally sending them into a tree. Danny tries phasing through them with this thorny bramble, forgetting that Valerie is still fully human and can get cut by thorns, which prompts an angry rant about her idiot partner. In one sequence, they cross a rope bridge high above a green ectolake, and Skulker attacks with Danny instinctively going ghost and flying upward, forgetting that Valerie's cuffed to him. She dangles and nearly plunges until Danny pulls up, leading to a tense argument mid-air about trust and communication, and each fiasco forces them to readjust. Slowly, they fall into a rhythm, covering each other's blind spots as they navigate Skulker's gauntlet. Meanwhile, small moments of understanding do blossom, like Valerie observes Danny's protective instincts up close, and every time a trap springs, Danny's first move is to shield Valerie and the flower baby with his body or powers. It challenges her long-held belief that Phantom is a selfless menace. Conversely, Danny sees Valerie's courage and resourcefulness when Skulker corners them at the point. Fiercely fires every gadget in her arsenal to defend Danny, and yes, the baby too. And a poignant scene happens one night as they camp on the island, taking a rare break. Valerie admits in a rare vulnerable moment that everything in her life has changed, and maybe she's projected too much of the blame on ghosts without seeing the person underneath, which is a cool metaphor to Danny. Danny, who is still maintaining his phantom disguise, softly apologizes on behalf of the ghosts that hurt her, a subtle way of expressing his personal regret without necessarily revealing himself. And Valerie is visibly surprised by the empathy from her supposed mortal enemy. Kind of in a way that Danny needed to understand ghosts in order to have empathy for them, she's starting to get that. The climax has Skulker capturing the flower baby and holding it over a cliff, taunting them that he'll drop it, and oh yes, that would kill them. So that also would be a problem. In the moment, Danny and Valerie act in perfect sync. Danny uses his ghostly wail for the first time, unlocking that power, perhaps, and startles Skulker. And Valerie uses the recoil of her hoverboard to sling Danny forward like a slingshot. He snatches the sack mid-air, and Valerie snatches Danny's hand, swinging them both to safety. It's an exhilarating maneuver that shows just how formidable the two can be together, and faced with teamwork, Skulker is actually impressed right before, Valerie blasts him point blank, sending him packing. Yeah. With the danger past, the cuffs dissolve, with the timer set by Skulker, who expected one to fail by now, and the two return to the human world through a portal Wolf's earlier escape left. Stumbling back into class just in time to present their slightly battered flower baby, Lancer is impressed by their creative parenting and gives them a really good grade. After class, Valerie and Danny share a moment at their lockers, with Valerie clearly having softened thanks to Danny Phantom. Quietly. Yet she's not yet connecting Fenton to Phantom, which is still kind of crazy. Danny, taken aback, is addressing her in his human form without knowing it's him she's thanking, and she just smiles and says, "You weren't so bad yourself." And they part with a new respect, maybe even a spark of something more, as Valerie later daydreams for a second about Phantom's surprisingly kind eyes and wonders if she misjudged him. Life Lessons delivers exactly what the title promises, lessons about understanding, and it's stand out for how it develops Valerie's character. She goes from a one-note seeking revenge to a nuanced ally, temporarily, and it lays the groundwork for the complex Danny-Valerie dynamic that comes out in season 2, where they actually date, but we're not going to get into that yet. In hindsight, this episode is their first date of sorts. albeit an action-packed, bizarre one. The animation in the Ghost Zone jungle is lush and neon glowing plants and creatures, adding to the adventurous feel. And there's a lot of fun comedic bits, like Danny and Valerie bickering over the baby's name, and I don't know, it gives a lot of relief to the tension-filled plot. Even Sam at the end raises an eyebrow, noticing that Danny and Valerie exchange a friendly glance, even telling Tucker, when did those two start not hating each other? The life lesson here for Danny is huge. He learns that Valerie's not a villain, but a person who's been hurt, and that maybe ghosts and humans can find common ground. For Valerie, glimpsing into Phantom's heroism and humanity cracks the armor of her hatred, even if it's just a little bit. It's clever how the episode balances genuine peril and comedic undertones. Like, the image of them lugging a flour sack through a booby-trapped temple is both absurd and symbolically rich, and nothing forces cooperation like a shared child, even if it's a fake one. The concept of would-be enemies raising a child is such a classic trope, usually played for laugh and comedic comedies, but here it's done with a wink that also feeds into the plot significantly. It's not lost on viewers that Valerie's fatherly partner here is Danny. It's a thinly veiled allusion to the idea that under different circumstances, Danny and Valerie could have made a good family. Dark. In summary, Life Lessons brings Act 3's theme of growth to interpersonal levels. It's about breaking down the prejudices and forging unlikely alliances, a theme that resonates beyond the show. It's remembered as the episode where the bad luck between Danny and Valerie finally turned. Even if it's for a short while, we definitely hope that they can come to a better understanding. Oof, we're getting so close to the end. Episode 19, The $1 Million Ghost. So, the penultimate episode of Season 1 ramps up the stakes by placing a literal bounty on Danny Phantom's head. The architect of the scheme, of course, Vlad Masters. He's back with a vengeance and an opportunistic eye for profit and sabotage. After the events of Maternal Instincts, Vlad's been licking his wounds. The episode opens with Vlad attempting a heist on the Ghost Zone, specifically trying to steal the fabled skeleton key, which is some powerful artifact. The attempt backfires humorously when its guardian, this massive chomping ghost beast, destroys Vlad's ghost portal and much of his mansion in the process. Incensed and down but not out, Vlad concocts a two birds with one stone scheme. He publicly offers $1 million to anyone who could capture the legendary ghost boy Danny Phantom, thus drawing every ghost hunter and mercenary to track down Danny, which would also steal Jack from Maddie and the ghost portal for himself. There's just so much benefits to his side of this. The bounty announcement, which was made via special TV broadcast from Vlad's high-tech bunker, sends shockwaves, and suddenly Danny finds himself of the target of not just Valerie or the guys in white, this tongue-in-cheek parody of Men in Black, but a parade of quirky cameo ghost hunting teams. The episode delights in its references. A duo of sharp-suited agents named Smith and Wesson, clearly a nod at Men in Black, chase Danny with sci-fi gadgets and a mystery-solving teen trio with a Great Dane-like ghost dog, like a parody of Scooby-Doo's gang, trying to net Danny using the traps straight out of a 70s cartoon. These parodies not only add humor, but show how unique Danny is in this world of ghost tropes. He's outsmarting, he's seasoned, and he has got a lot of resourcefulness, often turning people's gimmicks against them. Throughout these slapstick chases, Jack Fenton, enticed by the bounty, also joins the hunt in his typical bumbling fashion. This puts Danny in the awkward position of evading his own dad's ghost-catching contraptions yet again, but this time he has a new worry. What if his dad actually succeeds? One scene simultaneously funny and touching is when Jack corners Phantom in an alley with a massive bazooka-like device. Danny braces for the firing, but instead Jack lowers the weapon in size, talking out loud to himself, "If I catch this ghost kid, will I make my family proud or break their hearts?" He reminds me of Danny sometimes. It's this fleeting introspective moment that shows Jack's instincts stirring. The hesitation allows the Phantom to slip away, but it leaves Danny shaken, and perhaps a little touched that Jack Fenton might sense something after all. As the ghost hunters wear Danny down through the day, one trap temporarily depowers him, and another group outs him on live TV. Vlad decides it's time for the endgame. Under the guise of concerned benefactor, Vlad warns Jack and Maddie that Phantom is targeting their portal. It's a ruse to get them out of the house. Meanwhile, he dispatches a spectral commando squad, a sly riff on Predator, complete with jungle camo ghosts, to assault Fenton Works and snatch the portal. Danny catches wind and is ready to defend his home. This is the first time we see Danny fighting to protect not just people, but his literal house, and by extension, his life as a Fenton. He's tossing ghosts through walls, and Maddie is going to wonder about the new kitchen table, deflecting ectoblasts and Scorch family photos, and in one comedic bit, uses one of Jack's ridiculous inventions, the Fenton ghost weasel, as a vacuum to chase out the ghosts hiding under the couch. The climax is a three-way face-off in Fenton's lab. Vlad appears in full Plasmius form to personally claim the portal, just as Jack unexpectedly returns, halfway leaving the portal unguarded, and we have Jack with his emergency ecto shotgun, Vlad throwing ecto energy, and Danny dancing between them, both trying to protect the disaster. In a tussle, Vlad nearly triumphs and even zaps Jack point blank, rendering him unconscious, a moment that actually makes Danny genuinely furious, and he unleashes a powerful attack that blasts Vlad into the portal flame. And in a last-ditch effort, Vlad grabs the portal's core component, a glowing power cell, and tries to escape, gloating that even if they didn't catch Danny, he wins by crippling their ghost research. And Danny recalls some advice from Jazz about bullies, and employs a little psychological welfare, like you think you're the only one with high-tech gear, and he pretends to call for backup, and Vlad is just rattled. He's probably a little more concussed from Danny's hit, but he hesitates long enough for Jack to see Vlad floating at the core and socks him in the jaw. A satisfying moment for Jack, who finally lands a win and sends Vlad sprawling and drops the $1 million device into Jack's hands. Vlad flees as sirens go off, and the guys in Fright arrive a little too late to catch the Phantom, but early enough to scare Vlad. The aftermath is strangely heartwarming and comical. Amity Park's ghost retreat, and the bounty is cancelled. Jack is celebrated for repelling Plasmius, though he doesn't really realize who it was, just bragging it was this pesky ghost that was stealing his gear. The bounty is presented to Jack and Maddie, since they technically did save the day guarding their portal, and Jack modestly for once says the real reward is his family safe, which I would take the reward still. I would still take the reward even if the family's safe, buddy. It visibly moves Danny and Jazz, though Danny is still publicly enemy number one. But he finds solace in at least his parents unknowingly fought on his side today. And in a final scene, Danny muses to Tucker and Sam on the roof that having a price on your head is not fun, but hearing his dad call him part of the family is priceless. He wonders if that maybe one day when all the secrets are out, things might be okay. A hopeful note as we head to the finale. So this episode is packed with Danny Phantom's signature blend of comedy and action. The parade of parody ghosts is a blast, and viewers loved spotting the references. It ties the series' self-awareness about its place in pop culture pretty well. The core of Danny versus Vlad versus Jack is a triangle that's been building all season, and the episode serves as a climax of that rivalry for now, effectively humbling Vlad and reinforcing Danny's faith in his father. It's telling that Vlad loses not only in a grand ghost duel, but via sucker punch from the man who he considers inferior. It's poetic justice for his arrogance. It's also a showcase of how much Danny's grown tactically. He navigates the gauntlet of bounty hunters by using brains over brawn, outwitting them instead of overpowering them. It's ingenuity that will serve him in the future crises. Nostalgically, fans relish in this episode for its fun factor, like the Scooby-Doo references, the Men in Black. Like, it's a lot of fun and also completing a storyline. And that leads us to our season 1 finale, Control Freaks. It's an episode that flips the script by turning Danny into a puppet of evil and thrusting Sam into the hero's role. The tone is aptly forbidding, and right out of the get-go, a traveling carnival circus, Circus Gothica, arrives in Amity Park with garnished posters promising thrills and chill. And it seems like a normal, simple episode at first, with Sam being the goth enthusiast she is, drawn to it with its dark aesthetic. Finally, an event her parents, who are actually conservative and anti-ghost, can approve of, mistaking it for like harmless fun. And it kind of reminds me of like emo nights. Like, it's something that Sam would enjoy and also can kind of bring Danny into it. Little do they know, the ringmaster is Freak Show, a descendant of ghostly artifact keepers who's got a powerful ghost-controlled staff. And it's kind of like a zoo scenario where he uses ghosts in a really irresponsible way, in like a show pony type way. With red-rimmed eyes and a wicked grin, he's part magician, part madman, and capable of hypnotizing ghosts to do his bidding. He even plays an extremely dangerous role in a 3-part episode in season 2, which we'll get into later, and it's just cool that we get the seed planted this early on. The episode's first act sees Danny and Tucker tagging along with Sam to the circus opening night. The visuals are stunning, and the stilt-walking clowns are terrifying, with this leering faces and acrobats and smoke, and you just don't know what's ghost and what's scary. Danny's ghost sense goes off repeatedly, and he's strangely unable to pinpoint any threat. Everything seems to be under the circus tent to enthrall the audience, but that changes when Freak Show, under the pretense of a grand finale, uses his staff and blood-red crystal to cast a spell on Danny Phantom mid-air. He had gone ghost to chase a minor pickpocket ghost, which played into Freak Show's trap. In a gut-wrenching moment, Danny plummets into the center ring, eyes spiraling with the same red hue as the staff, so he's under Freak Show's control. He stands and bows to the crowd as the star of the show, and Sam and Tucker are horrified. Sam, who's been the brains and conscience of the trio, now must confront her own worst fear, Danny being lost to the dark side. However, unwillingly, Tucker, the tech-savvy, not known for his bravery, immediately wants to run for help. But Sam insists they stay and find a way to free Danny with Freak Show's influence. The next sequences are harrowing. Danny Phantom expresses blank and obedient, which is really terrifying as the circus's main attraction. Under Freak Show's command, he commits dazzling crimes as a part of an act and phases into the Citibank vault, steals gold bars in the air for the cheering crowd, and actually goes through with a bunch of crimes that solidify him as the #1 public enemy. But everybody thinks it's just this comedic routine, and the public doesn't realize there are actually crimes being done. It's a clever commentary on showmanship blinding people to wrongdoing, which is very relevant at this point in our time. Sam follows the circus from town to town, essentially on their crime spree tour, with Tucker trying various gadgets to break the mind control, all futile. We see Sam's resolve hardened. She confronts her uptight parents to tell them that their beloved normal entertainment is a sham, and they, of course, ground her for speaking out, forcing Sam to literally escape out of her window to rescue Danny, a subtle nod to her choosing her own freakish found family instead of her birth family. Ooh, Sam's backstory is actually a lot more interesting than I thought. The emotional crux land in a quiet scene. Sam sneaks into Danny's trailer, more like a cage, and during a rare moment where he's left alone, he's slumped, clearly conscious, but unable to resist orders. He says he can't fight it much longer and that he's scared, not for himself, but if he might hurt Sam or Tucker against his will. It's an unusual vulnerability for Danny, who usually cracks jokes during dire straits, but Sam gently holds his face and vows she'll save him no matter what. Unbeknownst to them, Freak Show watches via crystal ball, and a sly grin indicates that he's planning to exploit that emotional bond. The climax is a doozy. Freak Show orchestrates a grand finale back at Amity Park. Using a mind-controlled Danny and a horde of enslaved ghosts, he stages a massive ghostly battle in the streets, all under the guise of entertainment. Townsfolk think it's part of the show until property starts actually getting destroyed, and then people start to pick up on what's going wrong. It took you guys that long. Sam steps in front of the mindless Danny and tries to jolt back his memories. She pleads, reminding him of who he is and who they are to each other. And in this precarious moment, where one blast could vaporize her, Danny's eyes flicker green for a moment, and Freak Show can see that his hold is weakening. He orders Danny to see Sam, but in a dramatic swoop, Danny grabs her, takes her to the top of the circus tent, and saves the day. The emotional showdown unfolds as thunder rolls, because of course, weather drama, and Sam, rather than begging for her life, uses the moment to speak from the heart, and how Danny's always fought for good. She confesses that even if he doesn't remember, she believes that he can completely turn this around. Danny's internal struggle is animated brilliantly, with his normal glowing green eyes under Freak Show's spell, fluctuating from green to red. It's just so cool. It's like a traffic light. Sam's word works as like this hypnosis, and in a burst of effort, Danny screams, and a spectral wail actually shatters the crystal in Freak Show's staff. The red fades from his eyes, and Danny is free, with only Sam saving the day. In a hero's instant, Danny dives, phasing them both out safely and passing through the collapsing tent. It mirrors so many classic superhero saves, and the emotional weight, like Sam tearfully hugging Danny mid-air as they float down, sets it apart from any normal kids show. The denouement seeks Freak Show, finally approached by the guys in white, with an assist from Valerie, who shows up fashionably late with an ecto net over him. It's a silent nod to protecting Danny's identity by nabbing the human rather than going phantom amidst the cheers, and Danny, cleared of the mind control, gets a reluctant apology from the city. Even the mayor, whose watch he stole, shakes his hand. It's a stark contrast to Public Enemies, where the public opinion of Danny swings positive again as everybody realizes the ghost boy was a victim, not a villain. Sam and Tucker stand by Danny's side in pride, and the final scene is just a trio on the rooftop, their favorite post-mission spot, looking over the now quiet town at sunset. Danny expresses his gratitude to have friends who anchor him like this, and Sam jests that maybe she should be the hero next time since she did such a good job, making Danny laugh that he's fine relinquishing the responsibility. And the camera pans out on them joking, stronger than ever. And it's the perfect capstone for the Act 3 of Season 1. It forces Danny to confront the literal loss of control, the ultimate test of trust between him and his friends, and Sam's character shines, like proactive, fearless, and emotionally transparent like never before, even though it's in a true Sam fashion. passion, and she backpedals a couple times, but you know how it is. For Danny, the experience is humbling. He's not saved by only the powers, but by the love and loyalty of his best friends. And thematically, it ties back to the season's core, identity and the bonds that shape it. Even without free will, Danny's identity as a superhero can't be erased, and Sam knew it and drew it out. Controlling Danny meant the animators got to indulge in making our hero look legitimately scary at times, which is kind of a rare treat that we only get in the second season going forward. Musically, Freak Show's motif has this carnival creepiness, and it intensifies the unsettling vibe of Danny smiling during the wrong deeds he's doing. And when he breaks free, a triumphant swell of the main theme mixed with a tender string arrangement underscores the emotional victory. As a finale, it checks all the boxes. It wraps up Vlad's arc, it evolves character relationships, and it resolves season threads. Danny's public image is redeemed, Sam's conflict with her parents gets a small victory, and Valerie sees Danny Phantom for a hero for the first time. And more importantly, it leaves us with a sense of growth. Danny is more confident in who he is, having literally confronted a dark version of himself, and his friends are more integral than ever. It encapsulates what makes Danny special: humor, heart, and willingness to push characters into compellingly dramatic situations. Seeing our hero momentarily go bad was both thrilling and terrifying, and a relief of his return felt earned by the end. I feel like if the final credits rolled over Danny, Sam, and Tucker for season 1, it would still be an incredible series as a whole. But we're lucky enough to know that that's not the end of the story. In fact, there's 3 acts to the entire series: season 1, season 2, and season 3. And I hope you guys liked my format of judging this as if it were a 3-act structured movie, because it definitely makes the recurring plot lines seem a lot more transparent to me. Ironically, it's been a transformative journey from start to finish, with Act 1 introducing a boy with new powers and a foundation to a double life, with Act 2 challenging his values and relationships with a series of conflict that show heroism that isn't black and white, and then finally Act 3 puts those lessons to the test, stripping Danny to his core and affirming the support system that holds him up. We watch Danny Phantom grow from a timid, unsure teen to a true hero, not just because of the ghost blasts, but because he learns to make good choices guided by empathy and integrity. The tone evolved from a playful, episodic show to a richer, serialized narrative with genuine emotional stakes. It feels like a cohesive story, and each episode is a chapter in not only entertaining, but self-discovery. By the end of season 1, Danny and his friends gaze up into the future skyline of Amity Park, and there's a sense of journey completed, and another beginning. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know what you liked or didn't like about this version of this. Should I go about this the same way for season 2? And did you guys like Danny Phantom? I really appreciate everybody for watching my videos and supporting my retrospectives, as it's really my passion to do these hour-and-a-half versions of these things. Not as long as Quentin reviews, but not as short as, LS Mark or any of the Nostalgia Guy. And of course, shout out to my boy Aggressively Average, my best friend growing up, and also a YouTuber doing the same thing I'm doing. Isn't this crazy? We're living in a weird time. And if you were crazy enough to sit through my 2-hour retrospective of Danny Phantom, enough to hear this voice, then you might be crazy enough to see my musical. I make musicals outside of this for passion, and I would love you guys to check out some of my songs. They're definitely heart-wrenching. I try to make stuff that's overly dramatic for no reason. I don't know, just check it out. I think you'll like it. It's playing right now as we speak, so technically you already listened to it, so I win. Ha ha ha. No, but seriously, that would be awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching Johnny 2000.